My sister thinks I'm a monster for charging her for last-minute babysitting. So, I 32F have an older sister. Jessica 35F, we've always been close. Or at least I thought we were. We live about 20 minutes apart, and I'm the fun, child-free aunt to her two kids, Liam 6 and Chloe 4. I love my niece and nephew to pieces. I really do. I have a dedicated drawer of snacks for them at my apartment, and a bin of toys. But I also have a life, and a job for the past year or so. Jessica's been pushing the boundaries of our auntie relationship. It started with the occasional, "Hey, can you pick up Liam from soccer? I'm stuck in traffic." Then it became, "My dentist appointment ran long. Can you get Chloe from preschool?" I didn't mind helping out in a pinch, that's what family does, right? But it escalated. Rapidly, the new pattern began about 3 months ago. My phone would blast its obnoxious default ringtone at 5:45 a.m. I'd fumble for it, heart pounding, thinking it was an emergency. It was always Jessica. "Hey," she'd say, her voice way too cheerful for the ungodly hour. "I know it's early, but Mark and I have a spontaneous spin class, wanted to go for a hike, need to get to Home Depot the second it opens. The kids are already in the car. We'll be there in 10 minutes. And before I could even form a coherent sentence, let alone a protest, she'd hang up. 10 minutes later, there'd be a light knock turned into a door open and my two sleepy-eyed nieces would be shuffled into my apartment, followed by Jessica shoving a diaper bag for Chloe and Liam's backpack into my arms. She'd give me a peck on the cheek, say, "You're a lifesaver. We'll be back by noon," and vanish. The first time, I was just bewildered. By the third time, I was furious. She never asked. She never gave me a choice. It was a statement, a decree from Mount Mom. And noon was a fluid concept. Sometimes it was 12:30. Once it was almost 2 p.m. I had to cancel morning plans. Reschedule a work-from-home meeting once, and my entire Saturday was just gone. I tried talking to her. I said, "Jessica, you can't just assume I'm free at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. You need to ask me beforehand." She just waved me off. "Oh, come on, you never have plans that early. And the kids love seeing you. It's not like you're doing anything important." That stung. My sleep, my quiet coffee time, my ability to decide how I spend my own time. That wasn't important. I felt like a free, on-demand daycare service with an emotional connection to the clients. The final straw came 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend David, and I had planned a rare weekend getaway. We'd booked a cute bed and breakfast about 2 hours away and were leaving Friday after work. I was so excited. At 5:30 a.m. on that Friday, my phone rang. I saw Jessica's name and my stomach dropped. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. Then my phone buzzed with a text. "Emergency, please pick up. Worried." I answered, "Jess? What's wrong?" "Thank God, listen. Our flight to Florida leaves at 8 a.m. Mark's mom surprised us with tickets for a long weekend. We're headed to the airport now. We'll drop the kids off in 15 minutes. You're the best." I sat bolt upright in bed. "Jessica, no, absolutely not. I am not even in the city. David and I are leaving for our trip today. I can't take them." There was a long silence. "What do you mean you can't take them? This is a once-in-a-lifetime trip. You can just cancel. It's just a weekend with your boyfriend." "I'm not canceling. You should have asked me days ago when you got the tickets." "We wanted it to be a surprise," she hissed. "Whatever, we're almost at your place. Be ready." She hung up. I was shaking with anger. David was awake now. Asking what was wrong, I told him, and he was just as furious. We made a split-second decision. We grabbed our pre-packed bags, locked the apartment, got in the car, and started driving. I texted Jessica, "As I told you, I am not home. We have left for our trip. You need to find another solution." My phone blew up for the next hour. Dozens of calls, texts ranging from pleading to venomous. How could I do this to her? I was ruining their vacation. I was a selfish, horrible sister. I finally turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. They missed their flight. They had to cancel the entire trip. The fallout was nuclear, my mom called me, saying I should have just helped out. That family comes first. I got cold-shouldered for a whole week. This past Saturday, the 5:45 a.m. call came again. I didn't answer. She showed up at my door at 6 a.m. "Kids in tow," I answered, still in my pajamas. She tried to brush past me. "We need to get to a parent-teacher breakfast at the school. It's mandatory." I stood my ground in the doorway. "No, Jessica." Her face hardened. "What is your problem? Are you still holding a grudge? Get over it. We're family." And that's when I snapped, but not in a yelling way, in a scarily calm way. "Okay," I said. "You can leave them." She looked triumphant. "Finally. You're being reasonable. Under these conditions, I continued, my new freelance babysitting rate for last minute, pre-7 a.m. service is $50 per child per hour, with a 4-hour minimum. So, that will be $400 for the day, payable via invoice upon your return. I'll need a signed agreement to those terms before you leave. Her jaw literally dropped. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You want to charge me to watch your own niece and nephew? I am offering a premium. Emergency childcare service, I said, my voice flat. Take it or leave it. She called me a money-grubbing monster. She said I had no heart, she told the kids. Auntie doesn't love you enough to watch you anymore. She finally stormed off, dragging a confused Liam and Chloe behind her. Now, the entire family is divided. My mom thinks I went too far. My dad, who has always been quietly irritated by Jessica's entitlement, secretly thinks it's hilarious. My other sister Amanda is on my side, saying Jessica has been taking advantage of me for years. Jessica and her husband, Mark, aren't speaking to me. They're telling everyone I tried to extort them for $400. Part of me feels guilty because I do love those kids, and I hate this tension, but a bigger part of me feels free. I finally set a boundary, even if I had to use a financial metaphor to do it. My phone didn't ring at 5:45 a.m. this morning. The silence was absolutely priceless. Update so. The fallout from my invoicing incident was intense for about 2 weeks. It was the Great Family Cold War. Group chats were silent. Family group emails about my dad's birthday barbecue went unanswered for days. My mom, trying to play peacemaker, would call me with these heavy sighs, saying things like, I just wish you two could work this out. She's your sister. I'd always respond. I'm ready to talk when she's ready to acknowledge she was taking advantage of me. That usually ended the conversation. Jessica, of course, was playing the martyr. According to my cousin, she was telling anyone who would listen that I had broken the sacred trust of sisterhood, and that I valued money over family. Her husband, Mark, who I'd always thought was a fairly reasonable guy, was fully on her side, apparently telling my brother-in-law that my actions were bizarre and hostile. The first crack in the silence came about 3 weeks after the standoff. It was a Tuesday, and I was actually having a really productive work-from-home day. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, but it was local. I answered, thinking it was a delivery. Hello, is this Liam's aunt? A woman's nervous voice asked. Yes, this is his aunt, I said, thoroughly confused. Oh, thank goodness. This is Mrs. Gable, the school nurse at Pinecrest Elementary. We have Liam here in the office. He's thrown up twice and has a fever of 101.5. We've been trying his mom and dad for over an hour. You're listed as the emergency contact, and you were the only one who picked up. My heart immediately went out to my poor nephew. Oh no, the poor guy, of course, I'll come get him right now. I hung up, grabbed my keys and wallet, and sent a quick text to Jessica. Mrs. Gable from Pinecrest just called me. Liam is sick with a fever. I'm on my way to pick him up now. I didn't wait for a reply. When I got to the school, Liam was pale and curled up on a cot in the nurse's office, looking so small and miserable. He perked up a tiny bit when he saw me. Auntie, he mumbled. I signed him out, carried him to the car, and got him settled with a blanket and a bucket. Just in case, I took him straight to my apartment. I got him into a pair of soft pajamas I kept for them, set him up on the couch with pillows, a cool cloth for his head, and put on his favorite Pixar movie. I was just texting David to ask him to pick up some pediatric electrolyte drink on his way home when my phone rang. It was Jessica. Her voice was frantic, all the previous anger gone, replaced with pure mom panic. Is he okay? What did the nurse say? Where is he? He's at my place, I said calmly. He's on the couch. He's got a fever. He's thrown up, but he's settled now. The nurse said it's likely just a 24-hour stomach bug. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing. You picked him up? Of course I did, Jessica. He's my nephew. I love him. I didn't say it with any malice, just as a simple statement of fact. Another pause. My phone died during a client presentation. I just got your text. I'm leaving the office now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Okay, drive safe. He's fine with me. When she arrived, she looked frazzled. Her work blazer was off, and her hair was a mess. She came in and went straight to the couch, kneeling down and feeling Liam's forehead. He was half asleep, cuddled under the blanket. Hey, sweetie, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She stayed like that for a minute, just watching him breathe. Then she stood up and turned to me. She looked Defeated and embarrassed. Thank you, she said, the words seeming to cost her something. For getting him. For taking care of him. I'll always be here for them when it's important. Jess, when it's a real need. I said it gently. But the subtext was clear. This was a real need. A 5:45 a.m. spin class is not. She nodded, looking down at her hands. I know. She took a deep breath. Look, about everything I think I need to apologize. I just waited, letting her find the words. I've been a jerk, she finally said, her voice quiet. A really entitled jerk. I was so stressed with work and the kids and just life. And you were this easy, reliable solution. I stopped seeing you as my sister with your own life and started seeing you as a convenience. And when you pushed back, I got angry because my easy solution was gone. What you said about me not thinking your time was important. It stuck with me, and it's true, I didn't. I'm so sorry. It was the first genuine, non-manipulative thing she'd said to me in months. The ice around my heart started to thaw. I accept your apology, I said. And I'm sorry I had to be so nuclear to get the point across. The invoice thing was extreme. But talking to you nicely wasn't working. A small, wry smile touched her lips. It was pretty extreme, but honestly, I probably needed it. Mark and I had a huge fight after we got back from your place that day. He admitted he'd been uncomfortable with how much we were dumping on me for a while, but he didn't want to rock the boat with me. She rolled her eyes. Typical Mark. We talked for almost an hour. After Liam was bundled into her car and taken home, it was the first real conversation we'd had in a year. We didn't solve everything in one go, but we started. That was a month ago. Things aren't perfect, but they're so much better. The 5:45 a.m. calls have stopped. Completely. Now if she needs help, she texts me. Usually days in advance. Hey, any chance you're free next Saturday morning? We have a parent-teacher conference we forgot about. And the best part? She actually accepts a no with grace. I said I couldn't do it last weekend because David and I had plans. And she just wrote back, no problem. We'll ask Mark's mom. Have fun. I've also started initiating time with the kids. I'll text her and say, I'm going to the Science Museum on Saturday. I'd love to take Liam and Chloe with me if they're free. It puts me back in control, and it feels so much better. I'm the fun aunt again, not the doormat daycare. The family drama has largely settled. My mom is just relieved we're speaking. My dad, when he heard about the resolution, just gave me a knowing wink and a thumbs up. Last weekend, I went over to their house for a barbecue. Jessica handed me a glass of wine and said, So, what's your hourly rate for burger flipping and anti-duty? We both laughed, a real, genuine laugh. It was a little awkward, but it was healing. I didn't need an apology in the form of $400. I just needed my sister to see me as her sister again, not her servant, and finally, I think she does. The silence at 5:45 a.m. is still glorious, but the sound of my phone buzzing with a respectful, planned request from my sister feels even better. Final update. It's been about 6 months since the whole invoicing saga began, and if you'd told me then that I'd be where I am now, I'm not sure I would have believed you. The path from being the family monster to finding a new, healthier normal wasn't a straight line, but we got here. The first few months after our initial reconciliation were careful. Like we were both walking on a floor made of very thin, very new ice. Jessica was making a conscious effort to ask, not assume. I was making a conscious effort to say yes when I genuinely could. To rebuild the goodwill, it felt a little transactional. But it was a necessary detox period for our relationship. The real turning point, the moment the ice fully melted, happened about 3 months ago. It was a Friday night, and my phone rang. It was Jessica. My stomach did a little flip. A Pavlovian response to potential drama, but I answered, Hey, she said, and her voice was soft, a little shaky. Are you busy? I'm just watching a movie with David. What's up? She took a deep breath. I need to ask you a huge favor, and it's totally okay if you say no. I mean it. This was new. The preemptive, it's okay to say no, was a phrase she'd never used before. It's Mark and me. We had a really big fight, like a bad one. I can't be in the house with him right now. Is there any way? Could I maybe come over? Just for an hour or two? To breathe? I was stunned. This wasn't about the kids. This wasn't a demand. This was my sister. Vulnerable and asking me for me. Not for my babysitting services. Of course, I said without hesitation. Come right now. 20 minutes later, she was on my doorstep. No kids in tow. Her eyes red-rimmed. David, being the saint he is, tactfully went to work on a project in the bedroom, and Jessica and I sat on the couch with cups of tea. She didn't go into graphic detail, but she talked about the pressure they'd been under, the resentment that had built up over years, how they felt like business partners managing a household instead of a married couple. She admitted that a lot of their spontaneous early morning activities had been desperate attempts to reconnect, to find some couple time wherever they could, but that it had backfired spectacularly by creating a whole new set of problems with me. I listened. I didn't offer much advice, just let her talk. For the first time in a long time, I felt like her little sister again, not her employee. She stayed for 2 hours, and when she left, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. "Thank you for this," she whispered, "for not saying 'I told you so.'" That night changed everything. It reestablished us as allies, as confidants. Since then, our new dynamic has solidified into something honestly better than what we had before all this started. The transactional feeling is gone, replaced by a genuine mutual respect. She and Mark started couples counseling, and from what she tells me, it's been hard but really good for them. They're now intentional about scheduling their date nights, with a paid, booked-in-advance babysitter. The kids have benefited hugely from the change. My time with them is now 100% quality time. I plan fun outings, or they come over for a scheduled anti-sleepover, which is a blast because it's a special event, not a default dumping ground. Liam, who's old enough to have sensed the tension, actually said to me a few weeks ago, "I'm glad you and Mommy aren't mad anymore." Talk about a punch to the heart. The rest of the family has fully moved on. My mom is just happy her daughters are close again. My dad, in his typical fashion, bought me a joke for services rendered invoice pad for my birthday, which got a huge laugh from everyone, including Jessica. The most profound change, however, has been in me. That simmering resentment I used to carry around is gone. I don't feel used or taken for granted anymore. Setting that brutal boundary, as nuclear as it was, taught me that I have the right to my own time and my own life. It empowered me in other areas, too. I've become better at saying no at work to unreasonable deadlines, and I'm just lighter. Jessica and I had lunch last week. Over salads, she looked at me and said, "You know, as awful as that whole fight was, I think we needed it. I was taking you for granted, and you were letting me. We were stuck in a crappy pattern." I agreed. It was a painful growth spurt for our relationship, but it forced us to communicate and renegotiate the terms of our sisterhood. We're closer now because we have clear, respectful boundaries. The free 24/7 on-call auntie daycare is permanently closed, but the fun, loving, and now deeply appreciated aunt and sister is open for business, on her own terms. So that's the final chapter. No invoices were ever paid, but a relationship was pricelessly repaired. My phone is silent before dawn and my heart is full. It was a wild ride, but we made it. Stories number 2. My fiancé's wee money talk is making me see red. I 28F never thought a 2-letter word could cause such a rift in my relationship. But here we are. I've been with my fiancé, Brandon 30M, for 4 years, and we got engaged about 6 months ago. We moved in together a year ago, and for the most part, things are great. We're a team. We tackle chores together. We support each other's careers, and we're planning a future together. But there's one massive, glaring issue that has started to make my skin crawl. It's about money, specifically my money. I work in tech as a senior software engineer. I've worked my ass off since college, putting in long hours, constantly learning new skills, and climbing the ladder. It's paid off. I make a very, very comfortable 6-figure salary. Brandon is a high school teacher. He is brilliant, passionate, and deeply dedicated to his students. I am incredibly proud of him. But the reality is, his salary is about a third of mine. For the first few years, we split everything 50-50. Rent, utilities, groceries, dates. It was fine. But it meant I was building a significant savings and investment portfolio, while he was living paycheck to paycheck. When we got engaged and started talking about a real, merged future, I knew that system wasn't sustainable or fair. So, I proposed a new arrangement. We contribute proportional percentages of our income to a joint account for all our shared expenses. Mortgage, we're house hunting, bills, groceries, and a joint savings for vacations and emergencies. The rest of our money remains our own in separate personal accounts, Brandon agreed. He said it made him feel like we were true partners and took a huge weight off his shoulders. I thought we'd solved it, but then a new habit started. It began subtly. I'd mention I got my annual bonus, And he'd throw an arm around me and say, "That's amazing. Look what we accomplished." I'd brush it off, thinking he was just being supportive. Then I closed a huge, stressful project that came with a substantial retention bonus. I was over the moon, telling him over a nice dinner I'd booked to celebrate. He raised his glass and said, "I'm so proud of us. This is going to be great for our savings." The word "our" felt like a record scratch in my brain. It has now become a constant thing. I'll talk about maxing out my 401k for the year, and he'll say, "That's great for our retirement," I mentioned. I was thinking of finally pulling the trigger on a luxury handbag I'd been saving my personal fund money for. And he said, "Are you sure that's the best use of our discretionary funds?" Our discretionary funds from my paycheck. The other night was the breaking point. We were at a casual gathering with some of his colleagues from school. One of them asked about the house hunt, and I mentioned that while the market is tough, my down payment savings are in a good spot. "Which helps," Brandon immediately chimed in. "Yeah, we've been really disciplined with our budgets. Our financial planning is really paying off." I felt my smile freeze on my face. He wasn't just being supportive. He was actively reframing my individual financial discipline and high income as a collective achievement. He had contributed a fair, proportional share to our joint account. But the down payment money? That was from my personal savings, accumulated from years of my high salary before we even had a joint account. Later that night, I finally brought it up. I tried to be gentle, saying, "Hey, I noticed you've been saying 'we' a lot when talking about my income and bonuses. It makes me feel a little erased, like my individual effort is being absorbed into the team." He was immediately hurt and defensive. His face fell. "I am part of your success," he said, his voice tight. "I support you emotionally. I pick up the slack at home when you work late. I listen to you vent about your difficult clients. A partnership means sharing everything, including successes." I thought we were a "we." I tried to explain that I valued his support immensely, but that there's a difference between emotional support and professional execution. I'm the one who sat through those brutal all-night coding sessions. I'm the one who spent years specializing in a niche, difficult field. His emotional support was crucial, yes, but it didn't feel right to equate it with the direct effort that generated the income. It devolved into a fight. He accused me of seeing him as a lesser partner, and of building a mine versus yours mentality instead of an ours. He said my request felt like I was pushing him away and invalidating his role in our life. I accused him of financial co-opting and not being able to celebrate for me without needing to be a part of it. We went to bed angry and haven't really resolved it. The air is still thick with tension. A part of me feels like a selfish monster. He's my future husband. Shouldn't it be ours? But another part of me, the part that fought so hard to get where I am in a male-dominated field, is screaming that this is a fundamental lack of respect for my individual achievement. I'm terrified that this is a preview of our entire marriage, that everything I accomplish will just become ours, and my identity as a high-achieving professional will be slowly dissolved into the entity of the couple. So, I'm left wondering, am I being a selfish, future bridezilla for wanting my professional wins to be recognized as my wins, even within the context of our "we"? Update. The silence in our apartment after that initial fight was heavier than any I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just quiet. It was a dense, awkward fog where every "good morning" and "what do you want for dinner" felt forced and fragile. Brandon and I were tiptoeing around each other, two people who shared a bed but were suddenly sleeping on the very edges of it, both physically and emotionally. The core issue, that little word "we," was now a landmine in every conversation. I found myself censoring anything related to work, money, or future plans just to avoid triggering another argument. It was exhausting. We were planning a wedding and a life together, but we couldn't talk about the very foundation it was being built on. After about a week of this unbearable tension, I knew we couldn't solve this on our own. The way we were talking, or rather, not talking, was just digging the hole deeper. During a particularly strained lunch where we mostly just looked at our phones, I took a deep breath and said, "I can't do this anymore. I think we need to see a couples counselor. I've already found a few names and I'm willing to book it." I expected more defensiveness, but he just looked tired. He nodded slowly, pushing his salad around his plate. "Okay," he said quietly. "Yeah, I think you're right." Our first session with the therapist, Dr. Evans, was rough. I laid out my feeling of being erased, of how my years of individual struggle and late nights felt minimized when he claimed my financial success as a joint venture. Brandon, his voice thick with emotion, explained his side. He talked about the inherent insecurity of being with a partner who earned significantly more. He said that in his mind, saying "we" was his way of trying to feel like an equal contributor in a partnership where the financial scales were so visibly tipped. He admitted it came from a place of feeling less than, and that my rejection of the word "we" felt like a confirmation of his deepest insecurity, that he wasn't bringing enough to the table. Hearing him say that out loud was a gut punch. I had been so focused on my own feelings of being invalidated that I'd completely missed the fear and vulnerability driving his behavior. Dr. Evans helped us see that we were both reacting to perceived threats. For me, it was a threat to my professional identity. For him, it was a threat to his value as a partner. We had several more sessions. We did the hard work. We learned to use "I feel" statements without immediately following them with a "you always" accusation. We started having structured money dates outside of therapy, where we could talk finances with a clear agenda and a promise to listen without getting defensive. The real breakthrough, however, happened organically about a month into counseling. Brandon's school was putting on a major theater production that he had been directing for months. It was his passion project, and he had poured his heart and soul into it. The night of the final performance, the show was a massive success. The students gave a standing ovation, and the principal sought him out to personally congratulate him on his incredible work. Later that night, over a glass of wine, he was beaming. Recounting every moment, I listened, so incredibly proud of him, and I said, "I am just so thrilled for you. All your hard work, all your late nights, it paid off in the most beautiful way. You did that." I saw the exact moment the words landed. His eyes got a little shiny, and he reached for my hand. "Thank you for saying that," he said. It feels really good to hear you say you. It was a mirror of my own feelings. He needed to be seen for his individual accomplishment too. We both did. From that moment, something shifted. The defensiveness melted away, replaced by a new conscious empathy. Brandon has made a Herculean effort to change his language. Now, when I get a bonus or close a big deal, he says things like, "I'm so proud of you. That is an incredible achievement. How should you, or we, if you want to include me, celebrate your success?" He frames it as a choice, and that makes all the difference. In return, I've become more proactive about celebrating our joint financial goals. When our joint savings hit a milestone for the house down payment, I made a point to say, "Look what we did. Our plan is working." I now understand that he needs to feel like a valued, integral part of our shared financial future, especially since the raw numbers can make him feel otherwise. The "we" isn't a dirty word anymore. It has its place. It belongs to our shared life, our shared home, our shared future. But my salary, my bonus, my professional identity, that's my "I" and his triumphs in the classroom, the respect he commands from his students and peers. That's his "I." We're getting married in 3 months. The premarital tension is there, sure, but it's about choosing napkin colors, not a fundamental rift in our partnership. We feel stronger now, having navigated through that storm. We learned that being a "we" doesn't mean erasing the two "I's" that came together to form it. In fact, it's those two strong individual people, supporting and celebrating each other, that make the "we" so powerful in the first place. Final update, it's our 6-month wedding anniversary today. As I sit here looking at the photo from our wedding day on the mantle, the two of us laughing under a canopy of string lights, it feels like a lifetime has passed since the tense, silent fights over a 2-letter word. I wanted to come back and offer a final, hopeful conclusion for anyone who might be seeing their own relationship reflected in our story. The work we did in those counseling sessions with Dr. Evans didn't just solve the "we" problem. It fundamentally rewired how we communicate. The wedding planning, which everyone warns you is a nightmare, was actually a breeze for us. When we hit a snag, like a disagreement on the guest list or the music, we didn't retreat into our corners. We'd say, "Okay, let's have a couples meeting," and we'd sit down with a notebook and actually listen to each other's perspectives. It felt less like a conflict and more like a partnership problem-solving session. A few weeks before the wedding, a big moment solidified our new dynamic. I was offered a promotion. It was a huge step up, with a title change and a staggering pay increase, but it also came with significantly more responsibility and the likelihood of more travel. My immediate gut reaction was a mix of excitement and anxiety. In the past, I might have just presented it to Brandon as a done deal, or worse, felt a simmering resentment that his opinion had to matter. This time I sat him down and said, "I've been offered this incredible opportunity. Here are the pros for my career and our financial future. And here are the cons, which mostly involve my time and stress levels. This is my career, and the final decision is mine. But you are my husband, and this will affect our life. I want your thoughts and feelings as my partner." We talked for 2 hours. He asked insightful questions, expressed his concerns about my well-being with the increased workload, and then, with complete sincerity, told me, "I am in awe of you. Whatever you decide, I will support you 100%. We will make it work as a team." There was no "we" about the achievement, but a solid "we" about navigating the consequences together. I took the job, and his support has been my anchor through the chaotic first few months. The financial system we fought over is now a well-oiled machine. Our proportional contributions to the joint account cover our mortgage on the cute little house we bought, all our bills, and generous savings for vacations and retirement. What's left in our personal accounts is truly ours, no questions asked. He never comments on my discretionary funds, and I don't micromanage his. The tension is completely gone. Interestingly, Brandon has found his own new confidence, feeling secure in our partnership. He applied for and won a grant to develop a new STEM curriculum for his school, something he'd been too intimidated to pursue before. When he got the news, I hugged him and said, "You did it. I'm so proud of you." And his smile was pure, unadulterated joy, free from any shadow of comparison. So, this is where we landed. We learned that a healthy "we" is built by two secure "I's." It's not a merger that dissolves the individual parties. It's a partnership that celebrates individual triumphs and shares the burden of challenges. The word "we" now feels warm and inclusive. A shelter we've built together rather than a cage I feel trapped in. Our marriage feels strong, not because we never disagree, but because we learned how to disagree and come out the other side closer. That painful argument over money wasn't the end of us. It was the difficult, necessary beginning of a much deeper understanding. I look at my husband today, not with any lingering resentment, but with a profound gratitude for the man who was willing to do the hard work with me. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing about the journey that got us here. Stories number 3. My HR signed me up to run office morale events without asking. I 34F work at a mid-sized marketing company in Austin, and up until a few months ago, I actually liked my job. It's fast-paced, creative, and I get along with most of my coworkers. But lately, I've been thinking that being liked in an office is the quickest way to get taken advantage of. So here's what happened. Every few months, HR tries to boost employee engagement by putting together something they call Team Spirit Week. It's basically 5 days of themed activities, potluck lunches, trivia, volunteer events, and random contests like best desk decorations. Honestly, it's fine in small doses, but it's never as optional as they make it sound. For years, there's been this one woman named Carla 49F in HR who runs the whole thing. She's nice enough but kind of passive-aggressive, the type who smiles while guilt-tripping you into doing something you didn't agree to. She's always saying things like, "We're all a family here," or "You're just so good at organizing. We couldn't do this without you." The last Spirit Week we had, I helped a bit. I designed a trivia poster and brought cupcakes. That was it. But apparently, that was enough to get me branded as the enthusiastic one. Fast forward to last month. I come in on a Monday morning, grab my coffee, and see a new flyer on the office bulletin board. Spring Morale Committee. Led by Lindsay me. I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But then I noticed there was an actual sign-up sheet underneath it with my name already listed at the top, and about 10 blank lines underneath. No one had asked me, no one had emailed me. HR just decided that I was leading this year's morale committee. At first I thought, okay, maybe it's just a placeholder. But that illusion shattered when Carla walked over later that day. Clipboard in hand, all chipper. "Hey Lindsay, so excited you're heading up morale this quarter. You've just got that positive energy we need," I said. "Wait, hold up. I didn't agree to that." She smiled and waved her hand like I was being silly. "Oh, come on. You're great at this kind of stuff. You're creative. Everyone likes you. And it'll look good on your employee review," I told her flatly. "Carla, I'm not interested. I've got enough on my plate with client deadlines." Her smile froze for half a second before she replied, "Oh, but it's already announced. People are expecting you to take the lead. It would be awkward to change it now." I just stared at her. "That's not my problem." She gave me this look like I'd kicked her puppy. "We just need team players, Lindsay," I said. "Team players don't get volunteered for unpaid labor without being asked." She walked off without another word. The rest of the week, I kept getting emails from random coworkers asking about the morale events, what the schedule was, where to sign up for trivia, what theme we were doing for the potluck. I kept replying, "I'm not organizing this. Please contact HR." By Friday, Carla called me into her office. She had that tight smile again, the kind that doesn't reach her eyes. "We've had a few people confused about your role. Maybe you could help out just a little, since it's already started." "No," I said simply. I didn't agree to any of this. She tried to play it off like a misunderstanding, saying, "Sometimes communication gets mixed up." "We just thought you'd be happy to help," I told her point blank. "Carla, that's not miscommunication. That's you assuming my time is free labor." Her tone shifted then. The sweetness dropped a notch. "Well, Lindsay, these morale initiatives are important to the company's culture. We're all expected to contribute, expected or required." I asked. She hesitated. "Encouraged." "Then I'm declining the encouragement." I stood up and walked out. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, HR has been icy with me. Carla stopped saying good morning. I found out later through a coworker, Ben 36M, that she'd been hinting to others that I was not a team player and difficult to work with. The funny thing is, once I stopped doing it, nobody stepped up. The committee never formed, Spirit Week was canceled. A few coworkers joked that the office lost its spirit, but several people privately thanked me for standing my ground. One of them, Rachel 31F, told me she'd been volunteered to organize the holiday party last year and ended up working extra hours without pay. And HR didn't even give her credit in her review. She said, "I wish I'd said no like you did. Still, part of me feels conflicted. I didn't want to be rude, but I also didn't want to keep being the default nice person who gets stuck doing unpaid extra work under the guise of morale. It's weird. I've noticed how quickly helpful turns into exploitable in office culture. You do one nice thing, and suddenly it's your permanent side job. The people who quietly refuse from day one, they never get asked. Now there's this weird tension around HR. Carla avoids me, but I can feel her irritation. My boss, David 42M, told me privately he respects my decision, but that it might have been better to handle it with more tact. I asked him what was tactful about being volunteered for work I never agreed to. He didn't have an answer. Last Friday, I overheard Carla complaining near the break room about how no one wants to help anymore, and some people think they're too good to contribute. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew who she meant. I'm not going to lie. It stung. I don't want to be the office villain. I like my coworkers. I just refuse to let my boundaries be walked over because HR wants to pad their engagement metrics. Here's the kicker. The company's CEO sent out an email yesterday saying morale was noticeably down and encouraging everyone to take initiative to make the workplace more fun. And guess whose name was mentioned in the positive leadership section for the previous quarter? Carla's. I laughed out loud reading it. So now I'm the person who killed morale, and she's the one getting praised for her dedication to team spirit. But honestly, I don't regret it. If the price of being respected is that some people think I'm cold or not fun, then so be it. I'm here to work, not to be the unpaid party planner for a company that measures culture in potlucks and trivia sheets. Let HR figure it out next time. Update. It's been about 6 weeks since I refused to run the morale stuff that HR volunteered me for, and I honestly thought it would all just fade away. I figured people would get over it. Spirit Week would be replaced by some other office initiative, and Carla would find a new volunteer to play party host. But apparently, corporate grudges last longer than I expected. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It started subtly. I began noticing that I wasn't being copied on certain team emails that I should have been. HR forgot to include me in a few optional training invites. My performance review meeting, which was supposed to happen in April, got mysteriously rescheduled 3 times. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just reading too much into it, but then a coworker, Ben, pulled me aside one afternoon in the break room and said, "Hey, just a heads up. Carla was talking about you again in the HR meeting." I froze. "Talking about me how?" He lowered his voice. "Something about you having a negative attitude and being difficult to engage." I only caught part of it, but yeah, she's not letting this go. I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. I decided to document everything, every weird omission, every passive-aggressive comment. Every time I noticed HR avoiding me or delaying something I was owed, I made sure to keep it professional, but I wanted to protect myself. A week later, we had an all-hands meeting where the CEO mentioned fostering a positive workplace culture. Carla got up in front of everyone to announce a new peer recognition program. The idea was that employees could nominate coworkers for positivity awards, with HR selecting the winners monthly. Guess who didn't get a single nomination the first month? Me. Guess who got two? Carla, the irony was painful, but here's where things got interesting. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who'd had enough. A few days after that meeting, Rachel from accounting stopped by my desk. She looked around like she was making sure no one was listening and said, "Hey, you remember how you stood up to Carla about that committee thing?" I nodded. "Well, after you did that, she tried to make me run the summer charity event. I told her no, and she got all weird about it. Said it would reflect poorly on my team spirit," I told her. "That's exactly what she said to me," Rachel rolled her eyes. "Yeah, I know. But I told her to talk to my supervisor if it was a problem. And she dropped it." That's when it clicked. Carla wasn't used to people pushing back. The only reason she got away with guilting people was because most of us wanted to avoid confrontation. So I decided to take it a step further. During my next one-on-one with my boss, David, I brought it up. Carefully, I said I'd noticed HR behaving differently toward me since I declined their committee role, and that it was creating unnecessary tension. He sighed, clearly uncomfortable. "Lindsay, I know things have been tense. Carla feels like you embarrassed her by not participating after your name was posted." "Embarrassed her?" I said. "She posted my name without asking." "That's not embarrassment. That's accountability." He gave me a look that said I agree, but I can't say it out loud. Then he said, "Look, I get it. You're not wrong. But HR handles morale and engagement, so it's a sensitive area. Maybe just keep things low-key for a while." That response didn't sit right with me. So, in other words, stay quiet and let her make things uncomfortable until she gets over it? He didn't respond, just rubbed his forehead and said, "I'll see what I can do." Spoiler, he didn't do anything. But something else happened that shifted everything. Our company did an anonymous employee satisfaction survey, the kind that HR always touts as a safe space to share feedback. And apparently, this year's results were brutal. I don't know who else complained, but I do know a lot of people voiced frustration about forced participation in morale events and unpaid emotional labor. The following week, an email went out from upper management announcing a review of HR's engagement practices. Carla looked furious for days. She was noticeably quieter, more withdrawn, and for the first time in months, she didn't have that fake chipper tone every morning. I can't say for sure if my situation triggered the review, but the timing was suspicious. Since then, the atmosphere in the office has been oddly lighter. People still talk, but not in that tense, forced, we're a family way. There's less guilt-tripping about participating in office activities, fewer mandatory fun announcements, and more actual work getting done. And the kicker? A couple of weeks ago, someone from HR, not Carla, sent out an email asking for volunteers for the next company event. This time, the email specifically said, "Participation is completely optional. Employees are not expected or obligated to contribute." I nearly laughed out loud reading it. I don't know if Carla got a formal reprimand or if leadership just told her to tone it down, but the shift was noticeable. She's polite now. Overly so, actually. She greets me every morning like nothing ever happened, and I just smile back and keep walking. Last Friday during happy hour, Ben told me, "You might have accidentally started a mini revolution. People are finally realizing it's okay to say no." It's funny. All I did was refuse to be volunteered without consent. I didn't set out to make a statement, but apparently, that's what happens when you stop saying yes out of fear of being labeled difficult. Now, my work feels like work again. Not unpaid morale management. My performance review finally happened too. David said my communication could be softer, but admitted my professional boundaries are admirable. I'll take that as a win. I don't know what Carla's next move will be, but I'm done playing along. If protecting my time and refusing unpaid extra duties makes me the office villain, then fine. I'll be the villain with a balanced workload and a clear conscience. Because if there's one thing I've learned from this whole mess, it's that morale shouldn't come at the expense of the people actually doing the work. Sometimes saying no is the most professional thing you can do. Final update. It's been a few months since my last post, and things have taken an unexpected turn. one that honestly made me realize how quickly office politics can flip on their head. After the HR review went down, Carla's power trip started to crumble. She wasn't fired, I'll admit. Part of me hoped she might be. But it was obvious that she'd been pulled aside by someone higher up. For a while, she tried to play the sweet, overly professional role, the kind where every email ends with, "and let's keep the positivity going." But everyone could tell it was forced. Then, about 2 months ago, she just stopped showing up. We got a vague all-staff email from corporate saying she'd transitioned out of the company to pursue other opportunities. Translation: she either got fired or quietly pushed out. No one said it out loud, but we all knew. And the weird part? The day that email went out, the office atmosphere changed instantly, like someone had opened a window and let all the stale air out. I didn't realize just how much tension she'd been creating until she was gone. People were laughing again, but in a genuine way. There wasn't that fake enthusiasm or the subtle pressure to show team spirit. We could just work and breathe. A new HR manager named Erin came in a few weeks later. Total opposite of Carla. Calm, competent, approachable. She sent out an intro email that literally said, "I believe in workplace culture that grows from mutual respect, not forced participation. My goal is to support, not manage your joy." When I read that line, I actually smiled for the first time in months about anything work-related. Erin ended up scheduling one-on-ones with everyone, just to get a sense of morale. When we met, I didn't even bring up Carla at first. I figured she'd heard enough secondhand stories. But Erin asked, "Be honest, how do you feel about how HR handled things before I arrived?" I told her the truth. Everything. How my name had been added to a sign-up sheet without consent, how I was guilt-tripped for saying no, and how it created this weird culture where people were scared to decline anything. She nodded, took notes, and said, "That's not okay. Thank you for setting a boundary. We need people who remind us what professionalism looks like." I think I almost teared up a little. I wasn't used to being validated at work. Definitely not by HR. After that meeting, things actually started changing in tangible ways. Erin revamped the morale committee entirely. Now it's a rotating volunteer group, and participation earns official time-off credits. As in, you get extra PTO hours for helping with events. People are actually signing up now, not because they're guilted into it, but because they're being compensated and respected. It's like the company collectively realized, hey, maybe fun isn't fun when it's forced. A couple of other interesting things happened too. Remember David, my boss? He's been a bit different since everything went down. I think he finally realized how unfairly HR had treated some of us. During my mid-year review, he actually apologized. He said, "I should have had your back sooner. You were right to push back. I just didn't want to get caught in the crossfire." That honestly meant a lot. I didn't need groveling. I just needed someone to acknowledge that I wasn't crazy for feeling cornered. And then there's Ben, the coworker who first warned me that Carla was talking behind my back. He and I have gotten pretty close since then. We started eating lunch together regularly, joking about the morale wars, and one day he told me, "You know, everyone watched how you handled that. You made it easier for the rest of us to stop saying yes to things we don't want to do." It caught me off guard. I never thought of myself as some kind of workplace rebel, but looking back, that one act of saying no really did ripple outward. People stopped being scared to set boundaries. Rachel refused to answer work messages after 6 p.m. and didn't get reprimanded. Jeremy told our new HR manager he wouldn't attend unpaid team retreats. And guess what? No one punished them. It's like we collectively remembered that we're employees, not cheerleaders for management optics. And here's the kicker. Last week, Erin asked if I'd be open to helping advise the new morale committee on structure and boundaries. Not to run it, not to lead it, just to give feedback based on my experience. I actually said yes. Not because I wanted revenge or to prove a point, but because for once it was my choice. That felt powerful in a way I can't even describe. Now our office feels balanced. We still have birthdays, holiday parties, random donut days, but it's organic. People help because they want to, not because they're afraid of looking ungrateful. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about Carla, and wondering if she learned anything from all this. I doubt it. People like her rarely reflect, but I hope somewhere deep down she realized that morale isn't about control or optics. It's about respect. The whole ordeal taught me something big in workplaces. The smallest boundary can be revolutionary. You don't have to scream or stage a walkout. Sometimes just saying no. "That's not my responsibility," is enough to shift the culture. I started this whole mess thinking I was just refusing to organize a party. Turns out, I was refusing to keep the peace at the expense of my dignity. Now, when I walk into work, I don't feel tense anymore. I don't dread HR emails. I do my job. I go home. And I actually feel proud of the space I helped create. Even unintentionally. The funny part? Last Friday, during happy hour, someone jokingly said, "Hey, Lindsay, you should run morale next year." And everyone laughed. And for the first time, I laughed too, because now I know if I ever said yes, it would actually mean something. Stories number 4. My work meeting turned into a nightmare when my private notification popped up on screen. I never thought I'd be the person who accidentally humiliated themselves in front of an entire team of coworkers. But here we are. I work for a tech company in Seattle, mostly remote. And like everyone else, I live on Zoom, meetings, presentations, brainstorming sessions. My entire workday is just one long video call broken up by frantic coffee refills. It all happened last Wednesday, during our bi-weekly department meeting. There were about 18 people in the call. My boss, Hannah, my project manager Drew, our HR rep Laura, and a bunch of my teammates, including Jake, who's always cracking jokes, and Brianna, who I've had a tiny not so tiny crush on since last year. I was presenting a slide deck for a new app prototype my team had been working on. Everything was going great at first. I was screen sharing, walking through our progress, and actually feeling confident for once. People were engaged, asking good questions. For a brief, glorious moment, I thought, maybe this is the day I actually impress everyone. Then it happened. As I was explaining our new user flow diagram, a little gray rectangle popped up in the top right corner of my screen. A notification from my iMessages app. And it wasn't just any message. It was from my girlfriend Amber, and it read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Still sore BTW for a full second." My brain didn't even process it. Then another popped up. "You better be ready for round 2 tonight, mister." And yes, it was still right there, perfectly visible to everyone on the Zoom call. I froze. My cursor stopped moving. My throat went dry. I heard Jake go, "Oh, damn." Before he quickly muted himself, Drew coughed loudly. And I think I saw Hannah's eyebrows shoot into orbit. I panicked and fumbled to stop sharing my screen. In my haste, I clicked the wrong window, opening my Messages app fully for half a second before finally killing the share. So yeah, not only did everyone see the notifications, they got a full glimpse of my chat history. The meeting went dead silent. The kind of silence that feels like it's vibrating. I think I mumbled something like, technical difficulties, before turning my camera off and pretending my internet lagged. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the app. After about 20 seconds of radio silence, Hannah, bless her heart, said, "All right, why don't we take a 5-minute break while Alex gets his screen sorted?" "Yes, I'm Alex." Her tone was that mix of professionalism and secondhand embarrassment you only hear when someone's life just imploded in real time. I sat there in my chair, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen, mentally calculating how hard it would be to move to another state under a new identity. When the meeting resumed, nobody mentioned it directly, but the energy was off. People were overly polite. Drew made a point of saying, "Great work on the prototype, Alex," with a tight smile that told me he was dying inside, trying not to laugh. The worst part? Brianna wouldn't even look at her camera, just kept staring slightly off to the side with this tiny smirk, like she was doing everything she could not to lose it. After the meeting ended, I turned my phone face down and just sat in silence for a while, debating whether to email HR and preemptively resign. Instead, I did what any mortified adult would do. I called Amber and yelled, "Why would you text me that during a meeting?" She burst out laughing and said, "How was I supposed to know you were sharing your screen? You never answer your texts anyway." I couldn't even be mad. It wasn't her fault. I just didn't think to turn off my notifications. Later that day, I got a message from Hannah on Slack. "Hey Alex, just a reminder to disable notifications when presenting next time. It happens to the best of us." Don't stress that "it happens to the best of us" felt like the corporate version of "I will never unsee that," but I'm trying to be kind. Over the next few days, word spread. It started subtle, people giggling when I joined calls, Jake making jokes like, "Hey Alex, got any updates for us today?" And Drew once saying, "Hope your screen's safe for work this time." It's been relentless. HR didn't get officially involved, thank God, but I did get a friendly warning email about maintaining professional decorum during virtual meetings. It wasn't disciplinary, but still, seeing my name in a formal HR message about sexting notifications was not something I had on my career bingo card. Amber thinks it's hilarious and keeps calling me Mr. Viral Zoom Guy. She even suggested I make a TikTok reenacting the moment. I told her if she loved me, she'd never bring it up again. At least now I double-check everything before sharing my screen. Close iMessage, mute Slack, even unplug my second monitor just to be safe. I've also set up a work mode on my Mac that silences all notifications, because I'm never letting lightning strike twice. The thing is, deep down I can laugh about it now. It was humiliating, sure, but nobody was actually offended. It was just one of those painfully human moments where your personal life smacks right into your professional one. And I'll probably never live it down. Now, anytime I join a meeting, I can see people glance at my little green screen-sharing icon and chuckle. I just shake my head and say, "Don't worry, I triple-checked this time." Still, every time I hear the ding of a new message, my stomach drops. Trauma lives in the sound notifications now. Update, I figured it was time for an update. Because apparently, the story that nearly made me change my name and move to Alaska still haunts me. Though in some weird, full-circle way it's changed my life too, so yeah. 6 months have passed since the pop-up incident, and I can finally talk about it without wanting to dig a hole and vanish into it. For weeks afterward, I couldn't join a meeting without feeling like everyone was secretly waiting for me to slip up again. People were nice about it on the surface, but you know how offices are, even virtual ones. Someone's humiliation becomes a running gag faster than you can mute yourself. Jake, the team jokester, milked it for weeks. He even made a fake notification safety checklist and sent it to the entire department, with lines like, Step 1, close your love life before opening PowerPoint. Step 2, if your partner calls you Mister, it's already too late. Even my boss, Hannah, couldn't resist smirking during meetings when I shared my screen again. She once said, "Let's all give Alex a round of applause for keeping it PG-13 today." Everyone laughed, including me. But inside, I was dying a little. But life went on. Slowly the jokes faded. People stopped bringing it up every week. And surprisingly, the world didn't end, if anything. I became weirdly popular around the company. Co-workers from other departments started messaging me, saying things like, "You're the guy from the Zoom thing, right?" Man, that was legendary. Legendary. That's one word for it. Anyway, something actually good came out of the disaster. Remember Brianna? The one I had a crush on? After the incident, she avoided eye contact for a while. But a few weeks later, she sent me a Slack message out of nowhere. So, that was quite a show last month. You okay? I told her I'd barely recovered from the trauma. And she replied with, "For what it's worth, it was the most entertaining meeting we've ever had." We started joking back and forth after that, about the company, about bad presentations, about everything. One night, we stayed on after a late meeting and just talked for hours. Long story short, we've been dating for 3 months now. And before you ask, no, I didn't plan that, apparently. Embarrassing yourself in front of your entire workplace is a solid foundation for romance. Amber, my ex, the texter, and I broke up not long after the incident. It wasn't because of the notification thing exactly. It was just one of those relationships that quietly ran out of fuel. We'd been drifting for months, and the whole situation kind of highlighted how different our worlds had become. She was laughing it off while I was mortified and trying to keep my job intact. We parted on decent terms, but I think both of us knew it was over, once the dust settled. I tried to make the most out of what happened. I even gave a little informal tech etiquette presentation to the company's new hires during orientation week. The HR manager, Laura, thought it'd be good for morale if someone turned a real-life blunder into a lesson. My first slide literally said, "Learn from my pain, turn off your notifications." Everyone loved it. I leaned into the story fully, told it like a comedy sketch. People laughed with me this time instead of at me, that day. I realized how much easier life is when you stop trying to outrun your embarrassment and just own it. The best part? I got promoted last month. I'm now a project lead, managing a small team. Drew, my old project manager, actually told me during my review, "You've become a lot more confident since, your incident." I laughed and said, "Public humiliation builds character." He grinned and said, "Guess it did. Brianna teases me about it all the time now. When I tell her I'm about to present something, she'll say, 'Double-check your pop-ups.' Lover boy." And yes, she calls me that in the most obnoxiously sweet tone possible. I guess the universe has a weird sense of humor. The thing that made me want to crawl into a hole ended up being the best icebreaker of my career, and the start of a relationship I didn't see coming. So yeah, I'm no longer the guy who died of secondhand shame. I'm the guy who lived to tell the tale, and even laugh about it. Still, every time I open a Zoom meeting, my thumb hovers over the share screen button like it's a self-destruct switch. Old habits die hard. Final update. It's been a full year since my legendary pop-up disaster. And I think I can finally say I've achieved redemption. Or at least, I've stopped flinching every time someone mentions notifications. For months after the second update, I thought that story had reached its natural end. Humiliation turned into humor, turned into career growth, turned into romance, but life kept throwing me curveballs in the most unexpected ways. First, let's start with the thing everyone always asks about when I tell this story. Brianna and I were still together, in fact. We moved in together 2 months ago. Yeah. The same girl who messaged me because of my most embarrassing moment now shares a kitchen, a Netflix account, and a mortgage conversation with me. I guess there's something to be said for vulnerability. We laugh about it all the time. Especially when we work from home side by side. Every morning she'll grin and ask, "Got your pop-ups off, babe?" It's become our running joke, our weird little love story origin, but life being life, the universe decided it wasn't done with me yet, about 6 months ago. I got invited to speak at a tech conference. The topic: digital presentation etiquette in remote workspaces. Basically, the same thing I did for the company's onboarding, just on a bigger stage. My boss, Hannah, thought it'd be a fun, relatable session. I laughed at first, but then realized, yeah, maybe I could actually turn that disaster into something useful. So I said yes, and there I was, standing in front of 200 people in a hotel ballroom, telling the story of how one innocent screen share spiraled into internet-level infamy. Our internal meeting clip actually got leaked online briefly. Thankfully, it never went viral beyond a small corner of Reddit. The audience laughed in all the right places. I could feel the tension that used to haunt me melt away. After the talk, a woman from another company came up to me and said, "That was the most human presentation I've ever seen. Everyone makes tech mistakes, but you made it funny and useful." I think that was the first time I realized I'd completely taken back the narrative. I wasn't the joke anymore. I was the guy who owned the joke. That moment changed a lot for me. I started consulting part-time with smaller companies on digital communication and remote professionalism. Yeah, I know, it sounds hilariously corporate, but it's good money and strangely fulfilling. Every time I say, "Always check your notifications," people laugh. And I laugh too, because they don't know how real those words are for me. Amber, my ex, actually reached out once after seeing me tagged in a LinkedIn post about the conference. She messaged me something like, "I can't believe you turned that into a career move. I'm proud of you, seriously." It was kind of surreal. We chatted for a bit, and she told me she's engaged now. I congratulated her sincerely. Whatever awkwardness existed between us feels long gone. At work, things have also been looking up. I've become a bit of a mentor figure for new hires. Not because I'm some corporate guru, but because they all know the story. During their first week, someone inevitably brings it up, and I end up telling it again. This time as a cautionary tale with laughter instead of shame. It's become part of the company lore. Hannah, my boss, even told me that story boosted morale in a weird way. It reminded everyone that mistakes don't have to define you, she said. They can connect you. I never thought a single notification could do that much heavy lifting. But apparently, it did. As for me personally, I've changed a lot. I'm more relaxed now, less terrified of imperfection. I used to be so obsessed with being the professional one, the guy who never slipped, never embarrassed himself. But that day taught me how thin that illusion really is, and how freeing it is to let go of it. There's something strangely beautiful about being utterly, publicly humiliated and realizing the world keeps spinning. No one's life is over because they saw a pop-up message. People forget, forgive, move on, and sometimes they even start to like you more for it. Brianna and I celebrated our 1-year anniversary last week. She surprised me with a custom mug that says, "Mute yourself before you wreck yourself." It's ridiculous and perfect. We laughed until we cried. I guess if I've learned anything from this whole bizarre chapter, it's that sometimes the dumbest, most cringe-inducing mistakes end up steering your life towards something good. You just have to survive the first wave of mortification and trust that you'll come out the other side with a story worth telling. And if anyone ever doubts that, well, I'll be the guy who raises his coffee mug and says, "Trust me, I've been there." Stories number 5. My boss's Halloween decorations almost got me into a fight with a woman who said she had cancer. I work part-time at a small local hardware and home goods store in Ohio. It's one of those old-school places that's been around forever, with uneven floors, that faint smell of fertilizer in the air, and a boss who takes Halloween way too seriously. His name's Frank, and he's one of those guys who starts decorating the store the moment the first leaf hits the ground. Every October, we get people from all over town coming in just to see his setup. He doesn't just throw up some cobwebs and call it a day. No, Frank builds full-on scenes. One year he turned the front window into a creepy graveyard with fog and animatronic hands popping out of the ground. This year, he outdid himself with a whole haunted market theme. Skeletons in flannel shirts pushing tiny carts, bats hanging from the rafters, and a life-size animatronic witch that cackled every time someone walked by. That witch ended up being the center of this ridiculous story. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of busy day where the store is packed with families. Kids hyped up on pumpkin spice samples, and people asking for random things like that one screw from last year. I was working the front counter, restocking some Halloween lights, when this woman walked in. She was maybe in her mid-50s, wearing a long beige coat and one of those oversized floppy hats that look too fancy for a hardware store. She went straight to the witch, stood there for a while, watching it move, then waved me over. "Excuse me, young man," she said. "How much for this witch?" I told her, "Oh, that one's not for sale. It's my boss's personal decoration. We use it every year," she frowned. "But it's in the store." "Yeah," I said carefully, "but it's display only. It's part of our Halloween setup. We sell smaller versions on aisle 4, though." She didn't even glance toward aisle 4. No, I want this one. It's perfect." "I'll pay double," I laughed awkwardly, thinking she was joking. "I'm really sorry, ma'am, but it's not something we can sell." That's when she did this dramatic sigh, clutching her chest. "You know," she said softly, "I have cancer stage 3. I might not even make it to next Halloween. And all I want is this witch to decorate my front porch. Something nice for my grandkids before I go." I didn't even know what to say. I froze. The people behind her looked uncomfortable too. I told her, "I'm really sorry to hear that, but I can't sell it. It's not mine to sell." She narrowed her eyes. "So you're telling me you'd rather disappoint a dying woman than just sell me a stupid decoration?" At that point, I wanted to melt into the floor. I told her again that it belonged to my boss, not me. I even offered to help her find something similar online or order one from our supplier, but she wasn't having it. She just glared at me like I'd kicked her dog. "You're heartless," she said. "You'll understand one day when it's your mother dying and no one will do anything nice for her." Then she turned to the rest of the customers and said, "This boy won't sell me something I need for my last Halloween. Can you believe that?" The whole store went dead silent. I could feel my face turning red. Frank came out from the back around that time, probably because he heard her yelling. He's a big guy, friendly but firm. And when he asked what was going on, the woman launched into this whole dramatic story about how I refused to sell her the witch, even though she had cancer and wanted it for her grandkids. Frank looked at her calmly and said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry about your situation, truly. But that witch has been part of our store for 8 years. It's not for sale," she scoffed. "So you're the greedy owner who'd rather hoard a toy than make a dying woman happy?" Frank just nodded slowly and said, "I guess that makes me the villain this Halloween." Then he smiled. "But the witch stays." You could tell she didn't expect him to stand his ground. She mumbled something under her breath, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of the fake bats fell from the ceiling. A few minutes later, one of the regular customers leaned in and whispered, "That lady comes here every fall. She pulled the same stunt last year at the craft store down the street. Said she had cancer then too. I just stood there. Stunned." Frank laughed and said, "You handled that better than most. Don't let people guilt you into stupidity." Then he offered to buy me lunch. The witch still sits in the window, cackling every time the door opens. Sometimes when it goes off, I think about that woman and her dramatic exit, and I wonder if she ever found another witch, or if she's out there somewhere, trying the same story at some other poor clerk's store. Either way, that witch isn't going anywhere. Not as long as Frank's around. A week after that whole witch incident, I thought things had blown over. I figured the woman either moved on or realized the performance didn't work and went to another store. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. It was a Thursday morning when things started getting weird. Frank and I opened up the store like usual, and there was a small box sitting by the front door. No return address. Just a handwritten note on top that said, "For the witch." Frank raised an eyebrow and said, "You order anything?" I shook my head. We took the box inside, opened it, and inside was a crumpled up plastic bag filled with fake spider webs and a note written in red ink. It said, "Maybe this will make her prettier for my porch." We both just stared at it for a second. Then Frank burst out laughing. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. "She actually mailed us decorations for the witch she doesn't even own." We brushed it off and tossed the stuff in the trash. But the next day, she came back. I was restocking batteries near the front when I heard the witch go off, the cackling sound echoing through the store. And then I heard her voice. My stomach sank instantly. She was standing there again, wearing that same beige coat and floppy hat, like she'd just teleported from last week. "Well, hello again," she said. "Smiling like we were old friends, ma'am," I said carefully. "I thought we talked about this already." "Oh, I'm not here to buy it anymore," she said, waving her hand. "I just wanted to see her one last time before, well, I didn't even know how to respond, so I just nodded politely." She stared at the witch for a while, then asked if she could take a photo. Frank had told me before, "Don't start fights with customers if you don't have to." So I said sure. She took at least 10 pictures from different angles, and even did a little video while narrating in a sad tone about how cruel people can be when you're dying. I started to realize what was happening. She was filming some kind of sympathy post. After she left, I told Frank, and he just rolled his eyes. "She's probably gonna post that online," he said. "Let her. Maybe we'll get some free advertising." 2 days later, we did get attention, but not the kind he expected. Our store's Facebook page was suddenly full of angry comments. People we didn't even know were accusing us of denying a dying woman her last wish and profiting off tragedy. Someone even posted a screenshot of her video. It had gone semi-viral in one of those local Facebook groups. She'd tagged the store, saying we refused to show compassion. The video showed the witch in our window, then panned to her tear-streaked face while she said, "I just wanted one thing to make my last Halloween special." The comments were full of people saying things like, "How could they do that?" and "Boycott that shop." Frank saw the video and groaned, "This woman's a better actress than I thought." He decided to post a calm response on our official page. He wrote, "We're sorry to hear about this woman's situation, but the decoration in question has been part of our annual display for years and is not for sale. We offered alternatives. We do not sell personal property." That post actually helped. Some people backed us up, especially locals who knew about her history of causing scenes. A few regulars even commented, "She tried that at my cousin's store last year." But things still got tense for a while. One afternoon, a younger woman came in, probably in her 20s, and said she was the daughter of the woman with cancer. She started arguing with me at the counter, saying we'd humiliated her mother publicly. I tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, your mother filmed us without permission and made false claims online." "We didn't do anything to humiliate her," she snapped. "You don't understand what it's like to watch your mother suffer," and stormed out. After that, Frank decided to move the witch to a higher shelf. Just in case, he joked that it was for security reasons. But I could tell he was getting tired of it. For a couple of weeks, everything went quiet. Then one morning, we got an envelope in the mail with a photo inside. It was the witch, printed from the video, and scrawled across it in black marker were the words, "You'll regret this when I'm gone." Frank hung it on the break room corkboard and wrote underneath in pen, "Rest in pettiness." At first, that made me laugh, but I couldn't help thinking about how unhinged it all was. Who sends something like that over a decoration? About a month later, a local reporter came by doing a feel-good Halloween feature about small businesses. Frank gave her a tour, and when she saw the witch, she said, "Wait, is this the one from that Facebook story?" Frank smiled and said, "The one and only." The segment aired on TV that week, showing the witch in all her animatronic glory, and the reporter made a small joke about how some decorations are just too loved to sell. It turned into positive press for us. People started coming by just to see the famous witch. We even started calling it the Cancer Witch, which sounds bad out of context. But around the shop it became kind of a running joke. Halloween came and went, and we kept the witch out until Thanksgiving because customers kept asking about her. Every time that cackle went off, it reminded me how ridiculous that whole saga had been, but also how something so small can spiral completely out of control in the age of the internet. I don't know what happened to the lady. Maybe she really was sick. Maybe she wasn't. But sometimes I think about how far people will go to make themselves feel like the victim. Even over something as dumb as a prop in a store window. The witch is still there today. A little scuffed from being moved around so much, but still working perfectly. And whenever a customer asks, "How much for the witch?" Frank just grins and says, "She's not for sale, but you can take a picture with her, for free." And that's how our store's weirdest piece of Halloween decor became a local legend. About a year later, right as Halloween season rolled back around, the witch story decided it wasn't finished with us. By then, things had gone completely back to normal. The Facebook post had faded into the internet void, and our store was doing great. Frank had even bought some new props: a fog machine, motion-activated bats, a skeleton dog that barked, and turned the front display into a haunted hardware yard. I'd honestly forgotten all about the woman, until one afternoon when a familiar face came through the door. Only this time, it wasn't her. It was her daughter. The same one who'd yelled at me months ago. She came in quietly. No yelling this time. She looked a little different, tired, older somehow. I was stocking light bulbs and froze when I saw her. She gave a small wave and said, "Hi, you probably remember me." I nodded cautiously. "Yeah. How's your mom?" She hesitated. "She passed away in March." I didn't know what to say. Even after all the chaos, I didn't want to be cold. I told her I was sorry to hear that. She gave a weak smile and said, "Yeah, thanks." Then she walked over to the witch, which was already set up again near the window. Same spot as always. The cackling started up when she got close, and she laughed softly. "I can't believe this thing is still here." "Frank doesn't let her retire," I said. "She's kind of a mascot now," she nodded. "Mom would have liked that, honestly. She loved Halloween. Sometimes too much." Then she looked down and said, "I wanted to come apologize for her, and for me too. That whole thing got way out of hand. She liked attention, and she wasn't always honest about things." I just stood there. Stunned, she sighed and continued. "She wasn't dying. She had health issues. Yeah, but the cancer story, she made that up. I think she was just lonely and angry that people didn't take her seriously anymore." I didn't say anything for a second. I think I just let out a quiet wow. "She felt bad after," she said. "She watched your boss's interview on TV, the one with the reporter, and she actually laughed about it. She said, 'Well, I made the witch famous at least.' That hit me harder than I expected." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I wanted to give you this," she said. "It's something she left in her stuff." Inside was a photo of her mom standing in front of the store window from the year before. You could see the witch behind the glass, mid-cackle, with the woman smiling beside it. On the back, in messy handwriting, it said, "For the boy who protected the witch. Sorry for being a pain." I don't know why, but that hit me straight in the chest. I didn't hate her anymore after that. The whole thing suddenly just felt sad. Frank came out from the back and saw what was going on. When the daughter explained who she was, he softened too. He even told her, "Your mom gave us a story that'll live forever around here." She laughed at that. She'd love to hear that. Before she left, she asked if she could take one last picture with the witch. Frank agreed, of course. She took it, thanked us, and walked out quietly. After she left, Frank and I stood there for a while. He finally said, "You know, maybe we should name the witch after her. So now, every Halloween, the sign under the witch says, 'Meet Marlene, the spirit who wouldn't take no for an answer.' It's not meant to mock her. It's more like a weird tribute to how chaotic and human that whole thing was." Every October, people still come in and ask for the story. Some locals know the whole saga. Others just think it's funny, and every time I tell it, I leave out the petty parts and focus on the lesson Frank always repeats. People will surprise you, sometimes in bad ways, sometimes in good ones. But if you hang around long enough, even the bad ones turn into stories worth telling. Last week, a little kid came in with his mom, pointed at the witch and said, "She's scary, but I like her." And I thought, yeah, that's kind of the point. The witch still cackles every time someone walks through the door. Same sound as always, only now when I hear it, it doesn't remind me of that awful day with the yelling or the online drama. It reminds me of that note, that apology, and the strange way people find to leave pieces of themselves behind, even if it's through a plastic witch that won't stop laughing. And honestly, that's the most fitting Halloween story I could ever tell. Stories number 6. My married best friend is cheating and wants me to help her cover it up. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get dragged into someone else's mess like this. But here we are. My best friend Kara and I have been close since college, over a decade now. We've seen each other through everything. Breakups, bad jobs, family drama, all of it. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, and I was hers. I know her husband Ryan really well too. We've all hung out together plenty of times. Gone on group trips, double dates, all that. He's always been this genuinely nice, reliable guy. Kinda quiet. A little awkward sometimes, but solid. Kara, though. She's always had this restless energy. The type of person who gets bored easily, craves excitement. She used to joke that she was addicted to chaos. I always brushed it off as her being dramatic. Until now, about 2 months ago, Kara called me late one night. She sounded drunk, which wasn't unusual. But then she blurted out, "I think I messed up." I asked her what she meant, and she said she'd hooked up with someone from her gym. A guy named Evan. At first, I thought she was exaggerating or that it was just emotional cheating. But she quickly made it clear it wasn't. She slept with him. She was crying, saying it just happened, that she didn't plan it, and that she still loved Ryan. She begged me not to judge her. I didn't even know what to say. My mind was racing. I felt sick. I told her I wouldn't tell anyone, but that she needed to figure out what she wanted to do, because keeping that kind of secret would eat her alive. She swore it was a one-time thing. I told her if she really loved Ryan, she needed to come clean or at least end the affair immediately. She said she would. Fast forward a few weeks, she didn't. Instead, she's been seeing this guy regularly. She told me she can't stop, that he makes her feel alive again. She's been lying to Ryan constantly, saying she's working late, or meeting me for drinks, or going to yoga. Except now she's been using my name as her alibi. She straight up asked me to cover for her. "Katie, please," she said during brunch one morning. "You're the only person I can trust. If Ryan ever asks, just say I was with you, okay?" I froze. She said it like it was the most casual request in the world. I told her no. I said I didn't want to be involved in that, and that she was putting me in a horrible position. She looked genuinely hurt, like I'd betrayed her. "Wow," she said. "I thought you had my back. I've covered for you before." That hit a nerve. Because yes, she had, but for stupid stuff. Like skipping out on a girl's dinner or lying about being sick to get out of plans. Not cheating on her husband. She kept pushing, guilt-tripping me, saying I was making things harder for her, that she needed time to figure things out. She even tried to downplay it, saying, "It's not like I'm in love with Evan. It's just fun." At that point, I told her flat out, "If you keep doing this, I don't want to be a part of it. I won't lie to Ryan for you." She got defensive and stormed off. We didn't talk for a couple weeks after that. Then last Friday, Ryan texted me out of the blue. "Hey, is Kara with you tonight? She said you guys had a girls' night." I just stared at my phone for a solid minute. My stomach dropped. I knew she was lying. She'd told me she was going to dinner with Evan. I didn't respond right away. I called her, but she didn't pick up. Finally, I just replied, "No, I'm not with her tonight. Maybe check in with her?" He never replied. The next morning, Kara showed up at my door. She looked furious. Apparently, Ryan confronted her when she got home. She managed to talk her way out of it. But she was livid that I didn't have her back. "You made me look suspicious," she yelled. "I told you I needed your help," I snapped. I told her she needed to stop blaming everyone else for her choices, that I wasn't going to keep lying to cover up her mess. She just stood there staring at me like I'd slapped her. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "If you were really my friend, you'd protect me. You wouldn't be self-righteous about it." That was the moment I realized we weren't talking about friendship anymore. She was trying to recruit me into her deception. I told her to leave. She did, slamming my door so hard a picture fell off the wall. I've been sick about it ever since. Part of me keeps thinking I should tell Ryan the truth. But that feels like such a betrayal too. It's not my marriage, not my secret. But it's also not fair that he's being lied to, and that she's using me as her scapegoat. I haven't spoken to Kara since that night. She's texted me a few times. Short messages like, "I'm sorry and I miss you." But I can't bring myself to respond. I don't even know who she is anymore. The worst part is that I still love her like family, but I can't respect her right now every time I think about Ryan. This sweet, loyal guy who has no idea what's going on. I feel like I'm complicit just by keeping quiet. I'm stuck between protecting someone I've known half my life and doing what I think is right. And no matter what I choose, someone's going to get hurt, but maybe the truth is, that already happened the moment she decided to cheat. Update: it's been a few weeks since I posted about Kara. My best friend who's cheating on her husband Ryan and wanted me to help her cover it up. I wish I could say things have calmed down, but honestly, everything has exploded in ways I didn't expect, and not because of me. After that night, she showed up at my house yelling. We didn't talk for a while. I think we both needed space, but I also think she assumed I'd eventually cave like I always used to. I didn't. I ignored her texts, her attempts to guilt me, even a long apology voicemail she left where she said she knew she'd messed up and just wanted to talk. I didn't delete it, but I didn't call her back either. I was just done being dragged into her drama. Then, about a week ago, I got a call from Ryan. At first I didn't pick up. I figured maybe it was something small or awkward, and I didn't want to get pulled into anything. But he left a voicemail that said, "Hey Katie, I really need to ask you something. It's important." That made my stomach twist. When I called him back, he sounded different, calm, but not in a good way. That kind of quiet tone you get when someone's already processed something painful. He asked me, "Are you and Kara still close?" I hesitated. "We were not so much lately," he sighed. "Yeah, I kind of figured something was going on. Look, I don't want to make this weird, but I found some messages on her laptop. From someone named Evan." I didn't say anything. I just listened. He told me he'd been suspicious for a while. Ever since that night he texted me and found out Kara wasn't actually with me. He didn't confront her right away because he wanted to be sure. Apparently, when she left her laptop open, he saw a string of emails and DMs between her and this Evan guy. Nothing vague, nothing deniable, full-on proof. He asked if I knew anything about it. That was one of the hardest moments of my life, because I had to make a choice. Stay silent and keep lying by omission, or finally tell the truth. I told him the truth. I said I knew she'd been seeing someone and that I told her I wanted no part in it, that she'd asked me to cover for her and I refused. I told him I never helped her cheat, never lied for her. There was this long pause. Then he said, "Thank you for being honest. I'm sorry she dragged you into this." I could hear the heartbreak in his voice. He wasn't angry, just broken. He said he was going to confront her and that he appreciated my honesty. Then he hung up. I sat on my couch for almost an hour afterward, just staring at the wall. I didn't want to ruin their marriage, but it wasn't me who did. She did that herself. Later that night, Kara texted me. "Did you tell him?" No greeting, no explanation, just that. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. An hour later, she showed up at my apartment again. I almost didn't answer, but she kept knocking. When I finally opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen, her hair messy, and she just started crying. Not the "I'm sorry" kind of crying, more like the "everything's falling apart" kind. "He knows," she said. "He's leaving me." I didn't say anything. She just stood there, crying and shaking. Eventually, she sat down on my couch and started rambling about how Evan ghosted her after Ryan found out, how her marriage was over, how she didn't know what to do, and I'll admit, part of me still felt for her, not as the friend I used to have, but as a person who was watching her own life burn down. She said she hated herself, that she didn't know why she did it, that she thought she wanted excitement but ended up destroying everything instead. She said Ryan moved out that morning and told her he was filing for separation. Then she said something that honestly broke me a little. "I thought you'd hate me, but I didn't think you'd give up on me," I told her. "Kara, I didn't give up on you. You gave up on yourself when you started lying to everyone, including me." She cried harder. We sat there for a while in silence. Eventually, she said she was going to stay with her sister for a bit and try to get her head straight. Before she left, she hugged me. I didn't really hug her back. That was the last time I saw her. Since then, Ryan texted me once more. Just a simple message. "Thanks again. I'm moving back in with my brother for now. I don't blame you for any of this." That hit me hard. I didn't realize how much guilt I'd been carrying until that moment. I felt like I could finally breathe. I've spent the last few days thinking about everything. About how friendship can turn into something toxic when loyalty crosses into enabling. I used to think having someone's back meant protecting them no matter what. Now I know it also means calling them out when they're doing something wrong. I don't know if Kara and I will ever speak again. Maybe someday, when enough time passes and she takes accountability. But for now, I'm at peace with walking away. Because I didn't ruin her marriage. She did. And I didn't betray her trust. I upheld my own integrity. It sucks, and it's messy, and it still hurts. But I'd rather lose a friend than lose myself trying to defend what's indefensible. Final update. It's been almost 6 months since everything went down with Kara and Ryan. and I can finally say things have settled, though not in the way any of us expected. The whole situation forced everyone involved, especially me, to look hard at what loyalty, truth, and boundaries really mean. After Kara left town to stay with her sister, she basically disappeared from everyone's radar. No social media, no messages, nothing. It was eerie. This was someone who used to post every brunch, every trip, every sunset selfie. And then suddenly, radio silence. I'll be honest, at first, I checked her pages every few days. Half out of habit, half out of worry. But after a while I stopped. It felt like reopening a wound. I didn't need to watch her try to rebuild her life or pretend everything was fine. I just wanted distance. Ryan and I spoke once more. About a month after he moved out, he called to thank me again. Said the divorce papers had been filed and that he was in therapy. He told me he'd realized the marriage had been dying long before the affair, and that Kara's cheating was just the final crack. He sounded steady, not bitter, just tired. I remember asking him if he hated her. He said, "No, I just don't know who she is anymore." That stuck with me, because it's exactly how I felt too. A couple of months later, I got a surprise text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's me. Can we talk?" It was Kara. My heart dropped when I saw her name. I didn't answer right away. I needed time to decide if I even wanted to reopen that door. 2 days later, she texted again. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to apologize properly. Against my better judgment." I agreed to meet her. We met at a quiet coffee shop on a Tuesday morning. When I saw her walk in, it was like seeing a ghost of the person I used to know. She'd lost weight, wasn't wearing makeup, looked exhausted. But her eyes, they were different. Softer, sadder. The first thing she said was, "You were right." She didn't sugarcoat it. She admitted everything. She said she'd been using me as a moral shield, because as long as I stayed silent, she could pretend she wasn't that bad. She said losing Ryan destroyed her, but it was the only thing that forced her to confront who she'd become. She told me Evan ghosted her completely, blocked her after Ryan found out. Apparently, Evan had a girlfriend of his own and panicked when everything blew up. Kara said, "I blew up my marriage, my friendships, my self-respect, for a guy who didn't even care." It was brutal to hear, but she wasn't defensive this time. No excuses, no self-pity, just honesty. She said she'd been in therapy since February, trying to figure out why she sabotaged everything that was good in her life. She said she's sober now. Apparently she'd been drinking a lot more than she'd admitted during the affair. That part hit me hard. I didn't realize how deep it had gone. At one point she started crying quietly and said, "I know I don't deserve your friendship, but I needed you to know I'm sorry. Not just for what I did to Ryan, but for putting you in that position. You were the only person who actually did the right thing." I didn't cry, but I did feel something shift inside me. I told her I accepted her apology, that I didn't hate her, but I couldn't go back to how things were. Too much had changed. She nodded. "I know," she said. "I just wanted to say it to your face, not through a text." We talked for almost 2 hours. It wasn't a friendship rekindling. It was more like closure. Two people acknowledging that something that used to be beautiful had burned down, and all that was left to do was sweep up the ashes. When we said goodbye, she hugged me, not like before. When she'd cling and cry, but gently, like she knew it was a final one, she whispered. "Thank you for not hating me," I said. "I never did. I just couldn't save you from yourself, and that was it." She left, and I haven't heard from her since. I don't think I will, and that's okay. Some chapters end quietly, and that's how they're supposed to. Ryan, on the other hand, seems to be doing well. He got a new job in another city and even started dating again. He sent me a quick message a few weeks ago just to say thanks. That therapy helped him let go of the anger. He said he's finally sleeping again. I told him I was glad, because he deserves peace. As for me, I've learned more from this whole mess than I ever thought possible. I learned that loyalty doesn't mean lying. It doesn't mean covering for people when they cross moral lines. Sometimes it means standing up to them instead of with them. And I learned that you can love someone deeply and still have to walk away. For a long time I blamed myself, for not stopping her sooner, for not warning Ryan earlier, for letting the whole situation drag me down. But now I know that wasn't mine to carry. Everyone makes their own choices. Everyone builds or breaks their own life. Kara broke hers. But she also seems to be trying to rebuild. Maybe someday she'll be okay again. Maybe she'll even be better. But it won't be because I saved her. It'll be because she finally started saving herself. I think about her sometimes, not with anger, but with a quiet kind of sadness. She was my best friend for so many years. The person I laughed with, cried with, grew up with. Losing that hurt. But holding on to the version of her that no longer exists would have hurt more. Now, I'm just grateful for the lesson. Even if it came wrapped in heartbreak. If there's one thing I've taken away from all this, it's this. You can't fix people by lying for them. You can't protect them from consequences they've earned. And no matter how much it hurts to watch someone self-destruct, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step back and let them face the fallout. That's what I did. And I finally feel at peace with it. Stories number 7. My plan to skip the holidays backfired harder than I expected. I've always hated working the holidays. It's not that I don't like the season. I love Christmas lights, peppermint everything, and that quiet hush in the air when it snows. But after 5 years of working retail management at a home goods store, the holidays stopped feeling magical and started feeling like trench warfare with glitter and Jingle Bell Rock. Last year, I decided I was done. I'd been planning to quit anyway. I had savings, no kids, and a part-time freelance gig I could fall back on. So, in late October, when schedules started coming out and I saw my name plastered across Thanksgiving week, Christmas Eve, and New Year's weekend, I made my move. I gave my 2 weeks' notice. My manager, Rebecca, looked like she'd swallowed a lemon when I told her, "You're leaving before the holidays?" She said, like I'd announced I was abandoning ship mid-storm. "Yeah," I said, as kindly as I could. "I've worked every holiday for 5 years. I need a break." She nodded, though I could tell she was furious beneath the professional smile. "All right, Jenna, I'll start looking for a replacement." That was that. I finished my 2 weeks, packed up my locker, and walked out feeling lighter than air. No more endless lines. No more angry customers screaming because we ran out of ceramic Santa napkin rings. I was free. At first, it was bliss. I spent Thanksgiving at my parents' house, actually sitting down to eat instead of scarfing down a cold sandwich in the stockroom. December rolled around, and I watched snow fall from my apartment window with cocoa in hand. I decorated my tree, listened to Christmas music because I wanted to, not because the company playlist looped the same 6 songs. But a few days before Christmas Eve, I ran into someone from my old store. Her name was Vanessa. She was a part-time cashier, super sweet, always covered my breaks when customers were being awful. She spotted me at the grocery store and waved me over. "Jenna, oh my God, you look so relaxed," she said. "Must be nice not to be in the madness right now," I laughed, feeling a little smug. "Yeah, I'm not missing it this year." Her face faltered just a bit. "Yeah. Well, we're kind of dying in there," I frowned. "Still that bad?" "Worse," she said. "They brought in this new assistant manager after you left. Some lady named Casey. She just had a baby 3 months ago. They weren't supposed to schedule her for holidays. But Rebecca said she had no choice since you quit. Casey's been crying in the office on her breaks. I feel bad for her." I felt my stomach drop. "Wait, what? She just had a baby?" "Yeah, she didn't even want to come back yet. But she needed the health insurance. They told her she could ease in. Then your position opened, and boom. She's working doubles this week." Vanessa shrugged, like she didn't blame me exactly, but she definitely wasn't letting me off the hook either. "Anyway, hope you're enjoying your freedom." I smiled weakly and muttered something about taking it easy. But that conversation stuck with me. That night, I lay in bed thinking about Casey. I didn't even know her. But the image of some exhausted new mom being dragged into 12-hour holiday shifts because I bailed kept replaying in my head. I know, logically, it wasn't my responsibility. I didn't create the system. I didn't make the schedule. But I also couldn't shake the guilt. The next morning, I called Rebecca. "Hey," I said. "It's Jenna. I heard things are rough over there. Do you, need an extra hand before Christmas?" There was a pause. "You want to come back?" she asked, skeptical. "Just for a week," I said quickly. "I can't promise miracles, but I know the floor and the system. I can help out." She didn't hesitate long. "If you mean it." "Yes, God. Yes." And that's how, on Christmas Eve, I found myself back behind the counter at the store I thought I'd left behind. When I got there, it was chaos. People everywhere, half the shelves empty. Wrapping paper strewn across aisles, and in the break room, sitting with her head in her hands, was Casey. She looked up when I walked in. Exhausted, pale. Hair pulled into a messy bun. "You must be Jenna," she said quietly. "Rebecca told me you used to work here." "Yeah," I said, feeling awkward. "I figured I'd help out. Didn't want to leave you hanging." Her eyes softened. "That's really kind of you. Thank you." We worked side by side that day. She told me about her baby, a little boy named Caleb, and how she'd come back early because her husband's job got cut. I was supposed to ease in, she said, scanning a cart full of Christmas candles, but they lost 2 people this month, so… She trailed off, shrugging. By the end of the shift, we were both exhausted but laughing. When we locked up, Rebecca came over and clapped me on the shoulder. "Didn't think I'd see you here again," she said. "Neither did I admitted. When I went home that night, I was sore. My feet were killing me, and I smelled like cinnamon and despair. But for the first time, the holidays felt meaningful again. Not because I was being some kind of hero, but because I realized that walking away from something doesn't always mean freedom. Sometimes it just leaves someone else holding the bag. After New Year's, I didn't go back full-time, but I did keep picking up shifts when they needed help. Casey and I stayed friends. She even invited me to Caleb's first birthday a few months later. Funny thing is, I used to think quitting would give me peace. But the peace I actually found came from showing up when it mattered, even when I didn't have to. Update. I didn't expect to be writing an update, but a lot has happened since I found myself unexpectedly ringing up customers on Christmas Eve last year. Back then, I thought I'd just do a good deed and disappear again. Close that chapter, pat myself on the back, and go back to my holiday-free freelancer life. But, well, life had other ideas. After that crazy week helping out, Rebecca asked if I'd consider staying on part-time. I told her I'd think about it. My freelance work was steady, but the truth is, working those few shifts had reminded me of something I didn't realize I missed. People, the chaos, the teamwork, even the weird camaraderie that forms when you're all exhausted and surviving on stale coffee and sarcasm. So I agreed to come in twice a week, just to help fill the gaps. That's how I got to know Casey better. She came back full-time after New Year's. And even though she was juggling new motherhood and long shifts, she never complained. She'd always show me pictures of her baby, Caleb, who was getting chubbier by the week, with these big blue eyes that could melt anyone. We became close fast, grabbing coffee before shifts, trading snacks, venting about customers. She told me one day, "I thought I'd hate you. You know," Rebecca kept saying, "if Jenna hadn't quit, you wouldn't be stuck here. But then you came back and you didn't have to. You showed up. I'll never forget that." That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't realize until then how much my decision had impacted her life, not just the company. She wasn't bitter anymore, just grateful. And that kind of humbled me. Fast forward a few months, Rebecca got promoted and transferred to another store, and management asked Casey to step in as interim manager. She was nervous as hell. I remember her pacing in the stockroom saying, "I'm not ready for this. I can't do it," I told her. "You've basically been running this place since November. You just didn't have the title." She got the job officially in May. She deserved it, every bit of it, and the best part? She asked me to stay on as her assistant. I laughed when she offered. "You know I only came back to avoid working the holidays, right?" I said. She smirked. "Guess I'm making you eat your words." And somehow, I said yes, I didn't expect to enjoy it, but I do. I like helping her organize schedules, training new hires, managing inventory without the crushing weight of full-time burnout. It's flexible, and she's understanding when I need time for my freelance gigs. For the first time, I feel balanced. The store itself is doing surprisingly well. Casey's been running these little community events, like Mom's Morning, where they open early for parents with kids, or charity drives for the local shelter. She says, if we're going to sell stuff, let's at least make it mean something. Last week, we were prepping for the upcoming holiday season again. The dreaded schedule went up, and I braced myself for that old holiday dread. But this time, instead of plotting my escape, I helped Casey figure out how to give everyone some kind of break. She made sure no one had to miss both Christmas and New Year's. She even scheduled herself for Christmas Eve so a few of the younger employees could travel. She asked me if I wanted it off. I paused for a long moment, then I said, "You know what? I'll work Christmas Eve, it feels right." She smiled. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "I've spent enough holidays running from the job. Maybe it's time to just lean in," and I meant it. Funny how a year ago, I was counting down the days until I could quit, thinking that freedom meant walking away from anything that drained me. Now, I realize that sometimes freedom is finding meaning in the things that used to exhaust you. It's weird. Quitting that job was the best decision I could have made, but coming back was what actually changed my life. I found friendships I wouldn't trade for anything. I found a rhythm I didn't know I wanted, and maybe most importantly, I stopped looking at every inconvenience as something to escape from. The other night, Casey and I closed together after a long day. We were both tired, standing in the dim light of the empty store, the faint smell of cinnamon-scented candles still hanging in the air. She looked at me and said, "Can you believe last year you were done with all this?" I laughed. "Yeah. And now I'm voluntarily working holidays again. Who even am I?" She grinned. "Someone who found their place." Maybe she's right. Final update. If you'd told me 2 years ago that I'd not only go back to the same job I once quit to avoid the holidays, but also find real happiness in it, I would have laughed you right out of the break room. Yet here I am, standing in the same store that used to make me want to cry every December. And for the first time in my adult life, I actually like where I am. This holiday season feels different. For one thing, we're prepared. Casey and I started planning the schedule in early October. We added extra seasonal hires, set up rotating shifts so no one burns out, and even budgeted for catered lunches during the busiest weekends. The store looks great. Twinkly lights, warm displays, none of that panicked, chaotic energy that used to hang over everything like a storm cloud. Casey's thriving in her manager role. She's turned that place around in a way I didn't think was possible. She leads with empathy. She remembers everyone's kids' names, makes sure everyone gets breaks, and knows exactly when to step in before someone has a meltdown. She's the kind of boss I wish I'd had back when I first started. Sometimes, I'll see her walking the floor with that focused, mom-meets-manager energy, and I think about how close she came to quitting herself last year. All because of a scheduling crisis I accidentally caused. That thought still humbles me. She told me something a few weeks ago that really stuck. We were closing up after a long Saturday shift. The kind where your legs ache and you've restocked the same candle display 50 times. She said, "You know, if you hadn't come back last year, I don't think I'd still be here." I told her that's not true, but she insisted. "No, really, I was drowning, Jenna. You showing up that week, it reminded me that people can be decent, that we're not all just surviving. You gave me room to breathe." I didn't know what to say to that. It's strange how something as small as coming back for a few shifts can ripple out like that. My life outside the store has changed too. My freelance work picked up. Not because I was grinding harder, but because I stopped burning out. Having structure again, even part-time, gave me more focus. I'm not constantly running from deadlines or feeling guilty for doing nothing. I've learned how to build balance instead of chasing extremes. I even started dating someone, Evan, one of our regular customers who came in last spring looking for a patio set. He's a teacher at a nearby middle school, and we hit it off after we both reached for the same coffee mug display real Hallmark moment. I know, he's patient and funny, and he loves how passionate I get when I rant about inefficient store layouts. We've been together almost 8 months now. When he found out I used to hate this job, he laughed and said, "Guess it's like one of those Christmas movies where the grumpy main character learns the meaning of community." I told him if anyone ever makes a movie about my life, I expect a casting choice that flatters me. This year, I volunteered to work Christmas Eve again. Casey tried to talk me out of it, but I told her, I owe the universe one more round, so I'll be there, handing out cookies to customers and joking with the team. It doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like part of something bigger. Last week, I saw Vanessa again, the same coworker who told me about Casey last year, the one who unknowingly guilt-tripped me into coming back. She's at another store now, managing her own department. She came by to pick up a few decorations and froze when she saw me behind the counter. "Wait," she said, laughing. "You're still here?" "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Guess I came back for good." She raised an eyebrow. "Never thought I'd see the day." "Me neither," I said. "But you know what? I'm glad I did." She told me she'd heard about how Casey turned the place around, how our store's now known as the nice one in the district. Low turnover, happy staff, solid numbers. Hearing her say that made me realize that the thing I used to run from, the long hours, the pressure, the grind, wasn't the real problem. The problem was how little humanity existed in it. Once that changed, everything else did too. When I lock up at night now, I don't feel that bitter exhaustion I used to. Sure, I'm tired. Retail is still retail, but there's a difference between being drained and being fulfilled. And somehow, through all my quitting and coming back and stumbling through guilt, I ended up finding the latter. This morning, I stopped by the break room before my shift and saw a note pinned to the corkboard. It was written in Casey's handwriting. "To the best team in the world, thank you for making the holidays brighter for each other and our customers. We couldn't do it without you. And special thanks to Jenna for reminding us all what showing up really means." I stood there for a minute, staring at it, trying not to tear up before my coffee kicked in, so yeah. Quitting that job was supposed to be my escape from burnout. Instead, it became the thing that led me to purpose, friendship, and an unexpected kind of peace. Sometimes I still shake my head at how poetic that sounds. But it's true. And if you're reading this while fantasizing about quitting your own job before the holidays, I get it, truly. Just take a breath. Maybe you need to leave. Or maybe you just need to find the right way to stay. Either way, it's okay to choose peace. Sometimes it just shows up in a form you never expected. Like a store full of tinsel, chaos, and people who care. Stories number 8. My ex-wife refuses to pay child support because she says her Reddit mod work counts as community service. When people ask why I'm so tired all the time, I tell them it's because I have 2 jobs. One that pays the bills and one called dealing with my ex-wife. I met Amanda when we were both in college in North Carolina. She was this artsy, clever girl who could make anything sound profound. I was just a business major with no real plan besides get a job and stay out of debt. We dated for a few years, got married right after graduation, and had our daughter, Chloe. When we were 27, things were fine for a while. But over time, Amanda got restless. She bounced between jobs, graphic design, freelance writing, content consulting, but nothing stuck. She always had a reason it didn't work out. Toxic bosses, soulless corporations, energy vampires. Meanwhile, I was grinding away at an insurance firm, paying the mortgage, covering daycare, groceries, all of it. When Chloe was 4, Amanda decided she needed to find herself. That apparently required moving into a downtown apartment with her online friends from some subreddit about digital minimalism. I tried to be supportive at first, but a few months in, I realized she wasn't finding herself. She was just finding excuses not to work. The divorce was messy. We agreed on joint custody, but I got primary because Amanda couldn't prove stable income. She was supposed to pay child support, nothing outrageous, just $350 a month. She signed it, smiled like she was doing me a favor, and said, "I'll send it when I can." She didn't. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She claimed she was between clients and working on a creative project. Then one day, I was on Reddit The Irony and saw a post from an account with her exact username, something dumb like Eco Moon Witch, arguing about unpaid digital labor in mod teams. Out of curiosity, I clicked on her profile. Her comments were full of stuff like, "As a senior mod for this community, I dedicate 40+ hours a week to improving online spaces, and moderation is work, and it's community service even if society refuses to see it." My jaw dropped. I texted her later that night, asking why she hadn't sent child support for 3 months. She replied, "I am contributing, Jake. My time as a Reddit mod is volunteer work. I shouldn't be punished for giving back to the community." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The next week, I got an email from her lawyer, some guy who looked barely out of law school, saying Amanda wanted to renegotiate the support terms on the basis of her uncompensated community engagement. I almost laughed reading it. It sounded like satire. My own lawyer, Dana, read it twice and said, "I've heard some wild stuff, but this might be a new low." She filed for enforcement, and that's when Amanda went full internet crusader. She posted on some subreddit, something like, "Our anti-family court," talking about how the system exploits mothers who choose non-traditional labor. Of course, she left out the part about how she lives rent-free with her boyfriend, a guy named Kyle who apparently builds VR meditation rooms. That post blew up. She got sympathy, awards, and hundreds of comments saying things like, "Stay strong, Queen, and digital labor deserves compensation." She even claimed I was financially abusive for expecting money. Meanwhile, I'm juggling work, school drop-offs, and late-night fevers. Chloe started asking why mommy never brings her the presents she promises. What do you even say to that? It all came to a head when we went back to court. Amanda showed up in a flowy linen outfit with a giant folder of printed Reddit threads. Her evidence. I swear I'm not exaggerating. She told the judge that she was performing essential social service through online moderation, and that her time was worth more than a conventional paycheck. The judge, a woman in her 60s who looked like she'd seen it all, just stared at her. "Ms. Gardner," she said slowly, "are you suggesting that unpaid internet activity fulfills your legal obligation for child support?" Amanda lifted her chin and said, "It's volunteerism." "Your Honor," the judge sighed, "volunteerism doesn't pay for children's food, housing, or clothing. Your child support remains due, Amanda looked like she'd been personally attacked by capitalism itself. After that, she went on another online rant about how the patriarchy weaponizes economics against empathetic women. My mom sent me the screenshots, and all I could do was rub my temples and remind myself to breathe. She did start sending money, small amounts, $20 here, $50 there, always with notes like, "This is symbolic of my energy exchange." I wish I were making that up. The other day, I picked up Chloe from school, and she told me, "Mommy says she's famous on the internet." I said, "That's nice." Because I didn't know how to explain that her mom's fame is from complaining about being asked to parent. What kills me is that somewhere in there, Amanda truly believes she's the hero of this story. She's built this digital echo chamber that tells her she's fighting oppression, while I'm just out here trying to make sure our daughter has lunch money. It's not even anger anymore. It's exhaustion. I don't hate her. I don't even think she's evil. She's just lost somewhere between screens and slogans, convinced her online life matters more than the one she actually has. Every few months she'll message me with some new plan, starting a wellness podcast, joining a digital collective, applying for creator grants. I nod, wish her luck, and go back to packing lunches. Chloe's 9 now, smart kid, kind, she told me recently. When I grow up, I'm gonna have a real job, like a teacher, or a vet. I smiled and said, "That's great, honey." She looked at me seriously and said, "Not like mommy's computer job." I laughed, but a part of me hurt too, because that's the legacy Amanda's building, not through work or money, but through absence. And yet, every time I log on and see someone typing about how modding is work, I can't help but think about her, sitting in front of her screen, convinced she's changing the world, while her kid's outgrowing another pair of shoes I'll have to buy next week. It's been about 6 months since the court shut down Amanda's Reddit mod Doricall community service argument, and I wish I could say things got better. They didn't get worse exactly, but it's like living next to a slow-burning dumpster fire. You just learn to breathe through the smoke. After the hearing, Amanda went quiet for a while. No emails, no late-night texts about the system, no random PayPal transfers with energy contribution in the memo line, just silence. It was honestly kind of peaceful. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted reality and gotten a real job. Then Chloe came home one weekend from her mom's and said, "Daddy, Mom says she's running an online business now," I said. "That's great. What kind of business?" She said she helps people with internet energy. Internet energy. I didn't even ask. A few days later, I saw it for myself. Someone on a local Facebook group shared a link to a new coaching service called the Digital Soul Studio. The founder? Amanda Gardner, her bio said. "I'm a full-time moderator, digital empath, and online community healer with over 12 years of volunteer experience. I teach others how to turn compassion into currency." I almost choked on my coffee. I guess internet energy meant she was charging people for spiritual advice online. There were packages, too. Virtual energy cleanse for $99, Reddit moderation coaching for $299, and a holistic digital harmony session for $500. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I called Dana, my lawyer, because Amanda had stopped sending any child support again. Dana sighed like she'd been waiting for this call. "Let me guess," she said. "She thinks she's self-employed now." Bingo. Dana filed another motion for enforcement. We went through the same song and dance. Only this time, Amanda showed up to court talking about her entrepreneurial spiritual work and claiming that her business expenses prevented her from making payments. The judge, the same one from last time, looked done before the hearing even started. "Ms. Gardner," she said, "your personal beliefs about energy work are not a defense for failing to provide financial support to your child. You are legally obligated to pay the agreed-upon amount. If you continue to fail to do so, we will pursue wage garnishment." Amanda got all flustered. "But I don't have wages. My work is energetic," the judge just said. "Then perhaps it's time to find more grounded employment." When I tell you the silence in that courtroom was delicious, I mean it. Afterward, Amanda stormed out without looking at me. Later that night, she posted this long rant on her business page about toxic exes and soulless judges who refuse to recognize emotional labor. One of her followers commented, "You're doing sacred work, ignore the haters." Another said, "Energy vampires will always try to drain your light." Apparently I'm the vampire now, still. The court got her attention. About a month later, the payments started showing up, barely on time, but they were there, $350 exactly, every month. No more symbolic donations, no emojis, no excuses. Just the transaction, and weirdly, I'll take that as a win. Chloe's old enough now to see through a lot of her mom's nonsense. She loves Amanda, but she started noticing the cracks. One night she asked me, "Why does mommy work on the computer all day if she's always tired and doesn't have money?" That one hurt, I told her. Sometimes people get lost in things that don't really help them, but they think they do. She nodded like she understood. A few weeks later, Amanda invited me to one of her digital balance seminars. I thought it was a joke, but no, she really sent me an email invitation. It said, "Learn how to monetize compassion and reframe your narrative in a post-capitalist ecosystem." I politely declined. She replied, "Typical. Typical is fine by me." A couple of months after that, something unexpected happened. I was helping Chloe with a school project, making a family tree, and she said, "I want to put mommy's job as helper." I asked, "Helper for what?" She said, "I don't know, she always says she helps the internet feel better." I almost laughed. But I didn't. Because honestly, that's probably the most generous interpretation anyone could give Amanda's life right now. She still sends me long texts sometimes, usually after midnight, about how she's breaking cycles and pioneering digital empathy. I don't respond anymore. I used to argue. I used to try to remind her that Chloe needs stability, not enlightenment, but I learned that arguing with someone who's convinced they're fighting a cosmic war never ends well. Last month, I got a letter from the state saying her tax refund had been intercepted and applied to her child support balance. I won't lie. I smiled. Not because of the money, but because for once, the system actually worked the way it should. Chloe's thriving. She's playing soccer, getting good grades, and reading like crazy. The other night, she told me she wants to write stories when she grows up. Real stories, she said. On paper, not on the internet, I said. That sounds perfect. I think about Amanda sometimes. How someone so smart got swallowed up by the validation loop of likes and karma points. She could have done anything. But she chose to build an identity that doesn't exist outside a screen. I'm not angry anymore, just sad for her. But when I see that automatic payment hit my account each month, I can't help but think maybe, just maybe somewhere deep down, she knows that real-world responsibilities still matter. Even to someone who lives online, and if she ever forgets again, well, the state of North Carolina has a funny way of reminding her. It's been about a year since the whole Reddit mod OIJALF community service saga ended. And honestly, I've had more peace in these 12 months than I did in the last 5 years combined. Amanda's still Amanda, but she's calmed down a little, or maybe just shifted her chaos to new platforms. Her Digital Soul Studio rebranded to The Empath's Corner, and now she claims to be a certified energy alignment coach. I don't know who certifies that, but I'm guessing it's someone with a PayPal button and a Canva subscription. She still runs her Reddit communities, though. I found one of them recently. Someone sent me a screenshot because they thought I'd find it funny. The title was, "Are True Digital Moms Uncensored?" And she was venting about toxic co-parents who weaponize money. The comments were all people cheering her on like she's the patron saint of divorced moderators. I didn't reply or react. I don't even have Reddit anymore. I deleted my account after realizing that every time I peeked into her world, it just made me tired. She thrives on conflict. I thrive on quiet. The real win here is Chloe. She's 13 now, confident, sharp, and funnier than both of us combined. She's starting to see her mom through her own lens, not mine, and that's been eye-opening. Last month, Amanda forgot to pick her up from soccer practice because she was hosting a live stream about digital burnout recovery. Chloe waited for 40 minutes before calling me. When I got there, she just said, "Mom's probably busy saving the internet again." That's her version of sarcasm now. She doesn't hate Amanda, and I'd never let her. But she started setting her own boundaries. She told me she prefers spending weekdays at my place because it's calmer, which is kid speak for no weird incense or crystals charging on the Wi-Fi router. Amanda still pays support, barely on time, but consistent enough that I don't have to chase it. I think the state's wage garnishment reminder finally sunk in. There was one month she accidentally sent the money to her Patreon page instead of my account, claiming the payment platforms got mixed up. But she fixed it after a court notice came through. Every time I think she's hit her limit on absurdity, she manages to surprise me. A few months back, she emailed me asking if I'd consider an energy-based exchange instead of money. I ignored it. But curiosity got the better of me, so I asked what that meant. Her reply was a full paragraph about how financial systems are outdated, and that offering emotional value is a higher vibrational currency. I forwarded it to my lawyer, who just responded, "Absolutely not. Dana's been a rock through all of this. When she first took my case, she told me, 'Some people think the internet's a real place until life reminds them it's not.'" That line stuck with me, because now, watching Amanda drift deeper into her world of digital empathy and Reddit power trips, I've realized that's exactly what happened to her. She found an identity online that feels more real to her than the one out here. And as much as I've tried to pull her back, I can't compete with thousands of strangers telling her she's right. Still, life's moved on. I met someone, her name's Kelly. She's a nurse, grounded as they come, doesn't even have a Twitter account. When I told her about my ex, she laughed and said, "That's wild, but honestly, every family's got their own brand of weird." She met Chloe a few months ago, and they hit it off instantly. Kelly doesn't try to play mom, she just listens. And Chloe really seems to like that. The three of us even went to the state fair this fall. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't walking on eggshells around my own life. Amanda found out about Kelly, of course. She sent me a long message about how I'm lowering my vibrational energy by partnering with someone who isn't spiritually evolved. I didn't reply. There's no winning that conversation. The funny part? A week later, she made a post titled, "How to Let Go of Ego Attachments When Your Ex Moves On," with a caption about embracing higher frequencies of forgiveness, progress. I guess there's still a weird sadness that comes with all this. Amanda wasn't always like this. When we met, she was passionate, witty, and brilliant with words. She used to talk about writing a book one day. I think she just got lost in the validation loop of online life. The constant need to be right, to be seen, to be special. Somewhere along the way, she traded real stability for internet importance. I've stopped trying to fix her. My focus now is Chloe, my job, and keeping things steady. Stability used to sound boring to me, but now it's the best thing in the world. Every now and then, Amanda will still send a text like, "The universe told me you're finally at peace." And you know what? For once, she's not wrong. Stories number 9. My husband made me choose between him and my kids, and I still don't know if I did the right thing. When I first met David, I thought I'd finally found someone who truly understood me. I was 32, a single mom of 2 kids, Ethan, who was 10, and Lily, who was 7. Their father had walked out on us years earlier, and while I had dated here and there, no one ever seemed to stick around long enough to handle the single mom package deal. Then came David. He was charming, kind, funny, and most importantly, patient. We met at a friend's cookout, and he didn't seem put off when I mentioned I had kids. In fact, he said something that melted me instantly. "They're part of your life, so they're part of the deal." That's how it started. A love story that felt like a second chance. David slowly integrated himself into our lives. He'd come over after work, help Ethan with homework, make silly faces to get Lily to laugh, and even show up at their school events. For the first time in years, I felt like my little family was whole again. After 2 years together, we got married. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family. The kids were thrilled. Ethan gave a little speech about how David was the best stepdad ever, and Lily wouldn't stop twirling in her flower girl dress. It felt perfect, but perfection doesn't last. The cracks started small. David was stricter than me, I'll admit that. He believed in structure, rules, and respect. I leaned more toward communication and empathy. I figured we could balance each other out. But after a while, his rules started feeling less like structure and more like control. Ethan had ADHD, and while he was bright and funny, he struggled to stay focused. Sometimes he'd forget chores or leave his stuff all over the house. David didn't handle that well. He'd say things like, "He's old enough to know better," or, "You're letting him get away with everything." I thought it was just an adjustment period. But then there were moments that made me pause. Like the time Ethan accidentally spilled soda on David's laptop. David yelled at him for almost 10 minutes straight. Ethan cried and ran to his room. And when I tried to calm David down, he snapped, "If you don't start backing me up, these kids are going to walk all over us. Us." That word started to sound wrong. Then came Lily, sweet, bubbly, emotional Lily. She adored David. Until she didn't. He'd make comments about how she needed to stop acting like a baby whenever she cried or got scared. One night she came into our room after a nightmare, and he told her to go back to bed. "You're too old for this." I got up anyway and took her back to her room. He didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. Over time, the tension grew. My kids started avoiding him. Family dinners turned into quiet, awkward affairs. The laughter that once filled our home had faded into silence. Then one night, it all exploded. Ethan came home late from a friend's house, just 20 minutes past curfew. David was furious. He yelled, took Ethan's phone, and grounded him for 2 weeks. Ethan, who was already emotional and tired, yelled back, "You're not my dad." David's face changed. He didn't hit him, but he stepped toward him so fast and so close that Ethan flinched. That image, my son flinching away from my husband, is something I'll never forget. I stepped between them, told David to back off, and he stormed out of the house. That night, Ethan cried himself to sleep. Lily curled up next to me and whispered, "Mommy, I don't like when he yells." I felt something break inside me. When David came home hours later, he didn't apologize. Instead, he sat me down and said something I'll never forget. "I can't live like this. Your kids don't respect me. You don't back me up. Either you get them under control, or I'm done." I was stunned. I told him, "They're kids, David. They're my kids. They don't need to respect you like they're soldiers. They just need you to love them." He shook his head and said, "You have to decide. You can't keep putting them before your marriage. Either we build a life together, or we don't." I didn't answer. I just sat there staring at him, feeling my stomach twist. He packed a bag and left that night. For 3 days, I didn't hear from him. The kids noticed his absence, but they seemed lighter. The house felt calmer. No yelling, no tension, just quiet, ordinary peace. Then, on the 4th day, he came back. He said he wanted to talk. He told me he loved me, that he didn't mean to make it sound like an ultimatum, but that he needed things to change. He said, "You can't let your kids come between us." And that's when I said it. They were here first. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. I told him I loved him, but I wouldn't, choose my husband over my children. I said, "They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask to lose their dad. They didn't ask for me to remarry. They're just kids. And if you can't love them as they are, you don't deserve to be in their lives." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You'll regret this." He left again that night. For good. The divorce papers came a few months later. He didn't fight for anything. Not the house, not even the car. It was like he just wanted to erase the whole thing. It's been over a year now. Ethan's in high school, doing better in therapy and learning how to manage his ADHD. Lily's still her sweet, imaginative self. Our home feels like home again. A little messy, a little chaotic, but full of warmth. I still think about David sometimes, about how things could have been different if he'd just been patient, or if I'd seen the red flags sooner, but mostly, I think about that question. The one that's haunted me since that night. Would I choose my husband over my kids? And the truth is, it wasn't even a question. I chose my kids. Every time, always will, because love isn't about ultimatums or control. It's about protecting the people who need you most, even if it means standing alone. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that remind you who you really are. And I'm a mom first. Always. It's been about 6 months since everything went down with David. And honestly, I didn't think I'd ever write an update here. I figured once the dust settled, I'd just quietly move on with my life. But so much has happened. With me, with the kids, even with David, that it feels like a different chapter entirely. When David left, it was like someone had taken a sledgehammer to the foundation of our lives. I tried to hold it together for Ethan and Lily, but inside, I was breaking apart. Even though I knew I made the right choice, it didn't stop the grief from creeping in at night when the house was quiet. There's a kind of loneliness that hits different when the person you loved isn't dead. They just chose to stop being part of your world. For the first few weeks, David texted me occasionally. He said he missed me, that he wanted to talk, that maybe we could find middle ground. But every message had the same undertone, that I needed to change, that I had let the kids run the house. I finally stopped replying. One morning, he showed up unannounced. I was getting Lily ready for school, and Ethan was packing his backpack. David stood at the door like a stranger, holding a cup of coffee like he was just stopping by on his way to work. He asked if we could talk in private, so I told Ethan to finish up in his room. David said he'd been doing a lot of thinking, that he still loved me, but that he needed to know if I was ready to prioritize us. That phrase, prioritize us, made my stomach turn. I asked him what that meant. He said, "It means putting our marriage first," I told him. "There is no our marriage anymore. You left. And you didn't just leave me, you left them." Too, he looked angry. But more than that, he looked lost. He said, "I didn't know it would hurt this much." And I said, "That's because you didn't think about who you were hurting." He didn't argue. He just stood there for a few seconds, nodded, and left. That was the last time I saw him. After that, things started to slowly rebuild. I took a new job at a small marketing agency. Flexible hours, better pay, and way less stress. It felt good to be in an environment where people actually respected me. I started therapy again, too. I thought it was just for processing the marriage, but it turned into something bigger. A space to actually figure out who I was when I wasn't someone's wife or someone's mother 24/7. Ethan, meanwhile, was struggling more than I realized. He kept everything bottled up at first. He'd say he was fine, but then I'd find him crying quietly in his room at night. His therapist helped him open up, though, and one day he told me, "Mom, I didn't like him, but I thought I was supposed to." That hit me hard. He said he used to pretend to laugh at David's jokes or agree with him because he didn't want me to feel bad. I told him that wasn't his job, that no kid should have to manage an adult's feelings. We cried together that night. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to bounce back faster. Kids are resilient like that. She started sleeping through the night again, and she's been drawing nonstop. Pictures of us, our dog, her friends. She doesn't mention David much, but when she does, it's usually something small, like, "Remember when he burned the pancakes?" We laugh about it now. A few months ago, something unexpected happened. I ran into one of David's old coworkers at a grocery store. She asked how I'd been and then hesitated before saying, "I heard David moved to Colorado. Apparently, he took a job out there and was starting over." She mentioned he'd been telling people his marriage fell apart because I chose my kids over him. At first, I was angry. Then I realized he wasn't wrong. I did choose my kids over him. I chose peace over control. I chose love that didn't have conditions attached. If that's what he's telling people, so be it. I'm not ashamed of that truth. These days things feel steady, maybe even good. There's laughter in the house again. I catch Ethan and Lily playing video games together, arguing over snacks, just being kids. I don't wake up with that tightness in my chest anymore. But the biggest change has been me. I used to think being a good mom meant holding everything together, no matter what. Now I realize being a good mom sometimes means letting things fall apart when they're hurting your kids. I'm dating again, kind of, a man named Ryan. Someone I met through work. He's gentle, funny, and patient. He knows I have kids and hasn't tried to rush anything. I told him early on that my kids come first, and he said, "Good. That's how it should be. I don't know where it'll go, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I've learned not to build my entire life around someone else's promises." Last week, Ethan said something that stuck with me. We were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, and he said, "You seem happy again, Mom. Like really happy." And he's right. For the first time in a long time, I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm not trying to please someone who sees my kids as obstacles. I'm not walking on eggshells. I'm just living. I guess the moral of all this, if there is one, is that sometimes the choice people force you to make tells you everything about them. Anyone who makes you pick between love and your children never really loved you in the first place. I thought losing my marriage would break me. Instead, it rebuilt me, and the woman I've become, she's stronger than I ever knew. It's been a little over a year since my last update, and I think this might finally be the real final one. Life has settled into something I never thought I'd have again. Not perfect, not magical, but peaceful. And that's more valuable than I ever realized. After everything with David, I told myself I wouldn't let anyone else into our lives until I was absolutely sure it was safe. For me, and for my kids, for a long time, that meant focusing on us. I poured everything into being present for Ethan and Lily, rebuilding routines, and unlearning some of the emotional habits that came from being in a relationship where I was always trying to keep the peace. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I second-guessed myself, wondering if I'd overreacted, wondering if maybe I'd been too hard on David. But every time one of those thoughts crept in, something in daily life would remind me why I made the choice I did. Like when Ethan came home with an art project he was proud of and hung it on the fridge without looking for approval first. Or when Lily started singing again while she helped me cook dinner, there was a lightness in the air again. That invisible tension that used to fill every corner of the house had lifted. Therapy has helped me understand that what happened with David wasn't about just one bad man or one broken marriage. It was about how easily love can get tangled up with control, and how people who mean well can still hurt others deeply when they can't accept them as they are. But this update isn't really about him anymore. It's about what came after. Ryan, the man I mentioned before, is still in my life. And to my surprise, he's become part of our family in a way that feels natural, not forced. We took things painfully slow. For the first 6 months, he never even met the kids. We'd go on quiet dinners, or walks, or spend evenings watching movies after they went to bed. He never pushed to move faster, never asked why I seemed cautious. The first time he met them was at a small fair in town. Ethan challenged him to one of those ring toss games, and when Ryan completely missed the bottle on his first try, Ethan burst out laughing. Lily offered to teach him how to play, and spent the next 10 minutes giving him fake instructions that made it even worse. By the end of the night, both kids were giggling nonstop, and Ryan was pretending to lose on purpose just to keep them laughing. I remember watching them from a distance, my heart doing that weird, cautious flutter that happens when you realize something good might actually be happening again. Ryan never tried to be their dad. He just was there, quietly, consistently, and kindly. He helps Ethan with his math sometimes, cheers for Lily at her soccer games, and doesn't take it personally when either of them wants space. That's the thing about him. He doesn't try to fill the silence with authority or expectation. He lets us exist how we need to, and for me, that's everything. A few months ago, David reached out again, not to reconcile, thankfully, but to apologize. He sent a long email saying he'd been doing therapy himself, that he finally realized how wrong it was to demand that kind of choice from me. He said, "I thought being a husband meant leading, but really, I just ended up controlling. I didn't know how to feel reading that." Part of me wanted to tell him it was too late, that an apology doesn't erase the fear or the damage. Another part of me felt a quiet relief that maybe, he'd learned something. I wrote back. I told him I forgave him, not because what he did was okay, but because I didn't want to carry that anger anymore. He replied once, thanked me, and said he hoped I was happy. That was it. It was the kind of closure that doesn't fix everything, but it let me finally exhale. Ethan's 16 now. He's got that sarcastic teenage humor that drives me crazy and makes me laugh at the same time. He's taller than me, eats like there's no tomorrow, and recently told me he wants to study computer engineering. I'm ridiculously proud of him. Lily just turned 13, and she started journaling. I found one of her entries left open on the table a few weeks ago. She'd drawn a little family picture, me, her, Ethan, and Ryan above it. She'd written, "Mom looks happy now." I cried when I saw it. Because she's right. I am happy now. It's a different kind of happiness. Quieter, more grounded. I used to think love was supposed to be big and dramatic and full of fireworks. But now I've learned that real love, the kind that lasts, is gentle. It doesn't demand or threaten or make you choose. It just is. Ryan and I aren't married. And honestly, I don't know if we ever will be. Maybe one day. But I've stopped measuring commitment in paperwork. The commitment I care about is the one I see every day. In the way he checks in on Ethan before a big test, or how he saves Lily the last piece of cake even when she forgets to say thank you. The other night, the four of us were sitting on the porch watching a summer storm roll in. The air was heavy and warm, the sky flashing with light every few seconds. Ethan had his headphones in. Lily was sketching lightning bolts in her notebook, and Ryan was sitting beside me, quietly holding my hand. I looked around and thought, this is it. This is the peace I fought for. I won't pretend everything's perfect. There are still days I get scared that something will ruin it all again, that I'll make the wrong choice or trust the wrong person. But I remind myself of what we've built, what I've built, and that's something no one can take away anymore. David once told me I'd regret choosing my kids over him. He was wrong, because what I got instead wasn't just the love of my children. It was the strength to finally love myself. Too, if anyone reading this is ever faced with a choice like the one I had to make, please know this. Choosing your children isn't selfish, it's sacred. You don't owe anyone an explanation for putting them first. Because someday, when the noise fades, and the house feels safe again, and you hear your kids' laughter echoing through the halls, you'll know you did the right thing. I know I did, and for the first time in years, I can say it without hesitation. We're okay now. Stories number 10. My ex tried to drag me across the world to make me his scapegoat, so I let him crash and burn when I was 27. I was dating this guy named Trevor, who had a habit of turning every minor inconvenience into someone else's fault. Usually mine. At first, I didn't see it. He was charming, funny, and had that kind of big dreamer energy that makes you believe he's destined for something great. He talked constantly about moving abroad, starting a business, living life bigger than everyone else. I loved that confidence. I thought it meant ambition. Spoiler. It actually meant delusion. We met at a friend's birthday party. He was the guy who made everyone laugh. The one telling stories with big gestures and too much eye contact. I was quieter, more practical, the figure-it-out type. We balanced each other, or so I thought. After about a year of dating, he announced he'd landed a job in Singapore. It was some vague consulting position at a startup that sounded sketchy even when he explained it, but he made it sound like this massive opportunity. Life-changing, he said. Something we can build on together. Together. I asked. Yeah, he said, grinning. You'll come with me, right? It wasn't a question so much as an expectation. Now, at that point, I had a good job in Chicago. I wasn't in love with it, but it was stable. My family lived nearby. My lease still had months left. But Trevor had this way of framing everything like an adventure. He said, "You've been playing it safe too long? Let's go see the world together." Part of me wanted to. I'd never left the country before. So, after weeks of convincing, spreadsheets, and calls to HR, I quit my job, sold my car, and packed 2 suitcases. The day before we were supposed to leave, his employer emailed, saying his work visa was delayed. He panicked, then in classic Trevor fashion, he blamed me. "If you'd applied earlier for the dependent visa, this wouldn't be a problem," he said, pacing the apartment. "Trevor, you didn't even send me the form until 2 days ago. Because I was busy. You were supposed to remind me." That was the first crack. But I ignored it. I told myself it was stress. I paid for my own ticket because his company reimbursed after arrival. Yeah, I know, we got to Singapore. And everything fell apart within 48 hours. His job didn't exist. The startup was one guy he'd met in an online forum who'd ghosted him the moment he landed. He'd basically been catfished into quitting his life. And somehow, in his twisted little logic, it was my fault. He started ranting about how I didn't support him properly, how I'd manifested negativity by not believing enough. I just stood there in our tiny Airbnb, watching this man unravel. When I asked what the plan was now, he said, "We'll figure it out together." Which was code for "you'll fix it for me." Like always, he wanted me to lend him money for rent, to help him find freelance work while he got back on his feet. I'd already spent half my savings getting there. I told him I couldn't. That's when he snapped. He said, "You're useless, Jenna. You don't take risks. You don't believe in people. You don't even try." I should have known you'd drag me down. Something inside me flipped. For months, I'd followed this man's plans, reassured his ego, fixed his messes. But standing there in that sweltering room, hearing him blame me for his imaginary job imploding, I felt this eerie calm. "Okay," I said. "Then I guess I'm dragging myself home." He laughed. Like I was bluffing. "You wouldn't last a day here without me." "Funny," I said, grabbing my passport. "You're the one with no job, no plan, and no clue." He called me dramatic, said I was abandoning him in a foreign country. I told him he'd abandoned reality long before I showed up. That night, I booked myself a flight home. I didn't even tell him when I was leaving. He woke up the next morning to an empty Airbnb and a note that just said, "You wanted an adventure. Here's one. Figure it out yourself." I blocked his number on the plane. Back in Chicago, I crashed on my sister's couch for a month, rebuilt my finances, and somehow got my old company to take me back. Different department. Same pay. It felt like reclaiming my sanity. About 6 weeks later, I got a random email from Trevor. The subject line said, "You ruined everything." Apparently, he'd run out of money, tried to get hired locally, and couldn't. He claimed that if I'd stuck around, he could have turned it into something. He ended the email by saying, "I hope you're happy now. You know what?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because for once, I wasn't part of his chaos. I wasn't the cleanup crew. I wasn't the reason things went wrong, last I heard, through a mutual friend. Trevor ended up bouncing between couch surfing and half-baked business ideas. Meanwhile, I've traveled twice since then. On my own terms, with my own plans. No one else's fantasies dictating the route. The funniest part? Every time I tell the story, people ask if I ever wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed. And honestly, I do wonder, just not in the way they mean. I wonder if he ever realized what it felt like to stand there, broke and scared, realizing the only person you can blame is yourself. Because that's the moment I realize something too. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't yelling or explaining or even getting even. It's walking away so cleanly that they have to sit in the silence they created. And that silence, it's deafening. About 4 months after I came back to Chicago, I thought I was finally done hearing Trevor's name. I'd blocked him everywhere, changed my number, and even made my social media private. Life felt calm again. I'd started dating casually, picked up yoga, and was getting used to enjoying weekends without someone else's meltdown dictating my schedule. Then one Friday night, while I was halfway through a glass of wine and rewatching Succession, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I ignore those, but something about it, maybe the area code, made me pick up. "Hey, Jenna?" I froze. I knew that voice, Trevor, before I could hang up. He launched into this manic stream of words. He was back in the States, apparently trying to rebuild. He said he was calling because he wanted closure. Then, in the same breath, he started talking about how he was finally getting his life together, and thinking about maybe giving things another shot. I swear I laughed so loud I startled myself. "Trevor," I said, "I'm glad you're alive. But whatever you're looking for, it's not here." He got defensive immediately. "I'm not looking for anything. I just thought we could have a mature conversation." "Sure," I said. "You want a mature conversation? Then here's one. You lied, you blamed me for your choices, and you stranded me in a foreign country. I don't owe you closure. I already closed the door." He went quiet for a few seconds, and then he said something that still makes me shake my head. "You always were cold," he said. "That's why nothing ever works for you. You don't know how to care about people." I hung up. 2 weeks later, I got an email from his new address. Different tone this time, all apologetic, all about how he'd been in therapy, and how he finally understood what he'd done wrong. He said he wanted to make amends. I didn't reply, but curiosity got the better of me. I Googled him, big mistake, apparently. He'd moved to Austin and was launching a consulting brand again. Only this time it looked more like a pyramid scheme than an actual business. The website had stock photos of happy clients, and a bio calling himself a global strategist. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or feel sorry for him, but the real kicker came a month later when I ran into someone from my old office. Claire, a friend who worked in marketing. She looked at me eyes wide and said, "You'll never believe who applied here last week." I didn't even have to ask. Trevor, apparently. He'd tried to spin our whole saga as a miscommunication during an overseas expansion. He'd told HR that he used to collaborate with me and wanted to reconnect professionally. I told Claire, "If he calls you, tell him the collaboration is permanently canceled." She laughed, but I think she could tell it shook me a bit. It was like seeing a ghost of a life I'd barely escaped. A few days later, I got another email from him. "This time shorter, just, you really left me out to dry? I hope you're proud." And you know what? I was. But not for the reason he meant. I was proud that I'd learned to choose peace over guilt. Proud that I'd stopped trying to fix people who didn't want to fix themselves. Proud that when someone tried to drag me into their chaos again, I just walked away. Fast forward to now, nearly a year since I left him in Singapore. I'm living in a small but beautiful apartment near the lake. I just got promoted, and I booked a trip to Italy for the spring. Solo, of course, sometimes when I pack for trips now. I remember that morning. Him asleep, me quietly zipping my suitcase, my hands shaking with both fear and relief. I think about how far I've come since that flight home. A friend of mine asked me recently if I ever felt guilty for leaving him stranded. I told her the truth. I used to, for a long time. I'd replay that moment and wonder if I'd been cruel. But the thing is, he'd left me long before I left him. Emotionally, financially, mentally, I just happened to be the one brave enough to walk away first. And every time I look at where I am now, stable, grounded, and finally at peace, I realize something simple but powerful. Sometimes you don't need to get even, you just need to get free. It's been almost 2 years since I walked away from Trevor, and I can honestly say I've built a whole new life. One that doesn't revolve around fixing someone else's disasters. But the universe, as it often does, found a way to test me again. This past spring, I was sitting in a cafe near my office when I overheard someone at the next table say Trevor's name. I didn't even mean to listen, but how could I not? My stomach clenched instantly. The guy was talking loudly about some business guy from Chicago who scammed his way into a startup pitch. I leaned back and listened as discreetly as I could. Apparently, Trevor had convinced a group of small investors that he had international market experience and connections in Southeast Asia. He'd used old photos of our time abroad, pictures I'd taken, of course, to make himself look legitimate. When one of the investors flew down to meet his contacts, they realized the whole thing was smoke and mirrors. I remember stirring my coffee and feeling this strange mixture of vindication and sadness. Vindication because, of course, he hadn't changed. Sadness because he probably never would. Later that night, I told my best friend, Erica, what I'd overheard. She said, "Jenna, people like that don't evolve. They just move their chaos around." And she was right. But life has this funny symmetry, because about 3 months later, karma decided to put a bow on it. My company sent me to Austin for a client project. Yes, that Austin. And guess who I bumped into in the lobby of my hotel? Trevor. He looked smaller somehow, not physically but in presence. The man who used to fill every room with his bravado now seemed weighed down, like someone who'd been running on fumes for too long. He froze when he saw me. Then he smiled, awkwardly, like he was trying to pretend we hadn't nearly destroyed each other. "Wow," he said. "Small world, smaller than you think," I replied. We stood there for a minute in this thick, uncomfortable silence. He was holding a cracked phone and a worn leather portfolio. His clothes were wrinkled, and he had that tired, desperate energy I recognized too well. The kind that comes from pretending everything's fine when it's all falling apart. He started rambling about how he was in town for a new opportunity. Something about consulting with investors again, but his tone was hollow, rehearsed. Then he said something that caught me off guard. "You really hurt me when you left like that." I didn't flinch this time. "You hurt yourself when you kept lying." He looked down, maybe realizing that there wasn't much else to say. I picked up my coffee and told him, "Trevor, I hope you figure it out, but whatever you're looking for, it's not me." Then I walked away. No drama, no shouting, no tears. Just a clean break again, that night in my hotel room. I thought a lot about how easy it would have been to get pulled back into the guilt, to soften, to pity him, but I didn't, not out of spite, but because I finally understood something. Letting go isn't just an action. It's a skill. It's something you get better at with time. When I came back to Chicago, I decided to start volunteering at a women's mentorship nonprofit. I meet women every week who've gone through versions of what I did. Partners who drained them, employers who exploited them, friends who manipulated their kindness. And every time I tell my story, I see the same look on their faces, relief that someone else gets it. A few months ago, one of the younger women in the group, Maya, fresh out of college, asked me, "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" I thought about that question for a while before answering. "I used to," I told her. "But now, I think everything went exactly the way it needed to. I wouldn't be who I am without the mess, and it's true. Because of that disaster of a relationship, I learned boundaries. I learned how to stop apologizing for protecting my peace. I learned how to say no without guilt. Sometimes, when I'm walking along the lake after work, I still think about that version of me in Singapore, the one who was scared, humiliated, and lost. I wish I could reach back through time and tell her, 'You're going to be okay. You're not weak for leaving. You're strong for saving yourself.'" This summer, I met someone new. A guy named Daniel. He's quiet, thoughtful, the opposite of Trevor in every way. He listens, he asks questions. He never tries to make me feel small. I was nervous at first, terrified I'd repeat old patterns. But it's different this time. Because I'm different, I don't measure my worth by how much chaos I can endure anymore. I don't play therapist or fixer, I just exist as myself, and that's enough. A few weeks ago, I got one last email from Trevor. I wasn't expecting it, and to be honest, I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won again. It said, "I'm leaving the country. Don't worry, not chasing you this time. Just needed to say you were right about me. Hope you're doing better." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That chapter's been closed for a long time. The next morning, I watched the sunrise from my balcony, a mug of coffee in hand, city lights fading into day, and I realized something I wish I'd known years ago. Walking away isn't the end of a story sometimes. It's the part where it finally starts to make sense. And if anyone out there is reading this while stuck in the same kind of trap I once was, feeling responsible for someone else's spiral, let me tell you this. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to let people face the consequences they built. You're allowed to be free. Because when someone tries to drag you across the world just to make you the villain in their story, the best thing you can do isn't to defend yourself. It's to leave and never look back. Stories number 11. My dentist asked me out, not sure what to do. I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this. Mostly because I've always viewed dentists the way people view flight attendants. Friendly professionals you chat with out of politeness, but never really imagine existing outside their job. But then there's Dr. Walker. I've been going to his office for about 3 years. He's probably mid-30s, tall, always wearing those black scrubs that somehow make him look like he belongs in a movie instead of a dental office. From the first appointment, he's always been personable in that polished, confident way that makes you feel like you're his favorite patient. I chalked it up to good bedside manner, until last month I went in for a routine cleaning. The appointment started normally. The hygienist Jessica did her thing while we chatted about my new job, and then Dr. Walker came in to do the final check. He complimented my teeth, made a joke about how you're officially my easiest patient, and then, very casually, asked if I had any fun weekend plans. I said I was probably just going to stay in and watch a movie. He smiled and said, "Maybe you'd want some company for that movie sometime?" I laughed awkwardly, thinking I misheard him, but nope. He was looking right at me. Mask down, very much serious. I froze, completely forgot how to human froze. I just mumbled something like, I don't really mix my personal life and teeth stuff." He smiled again, that same calm, confident smile, and said, "Fair enough, but if you change your mind, the offer stands." The hygienist didn't react, but I swear there was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. I left that office feeling like my brain was running Windows 95. I kept replaying the scene, his tone, his smile, the fact that my dentist, a literal professional who's had his hands in my mouth, just asked me out. That night, I told my best friend Megan. She practically screamed through the phone, "That's hot! Are you kidding me? You have to go out with him." But I didn't feel excited. I felt weird. Not because I didn't find him attractive, trust me, I do. But because of the power dynamic. He's a doctor, I'm his patient, and it feels off. Still, I kept overthinking it for days. I even Googled, is it ethical for a dentist to date a patient? Turns out it's not illegal. But a lot of professional boards discourage it unless the patient is no longer under their care. I thought about switching dentists just to clear the ethical hurdle, but that felt like making a big deal out of something that might not even go anywhere. A week later, I got an email reminder for my next 6-month cleaning. My stomach did a full somersault just seeing his name in the sender line. I hovered over the cancel button for a solid minute before deciding I'd go. Maybe I'd just treat it like nothing happened, but then 2 days later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Chris. Hope you don't mind me texting. Saw you on the appointment list and thought I'd check in before then." Chris, his first name, my dentist, texting me. I sat there staring at my phone like it was about to explode. He didn't say anything explicitly flirty. Just, "How have you been? And work keeping you busy?" But it was clear this wasn't about dental care. I didn't respond right away. I screenshotted it and sent it to Megan. She texted back, "He's totally into you. Stop overthinking and just say hi." But the longer I looked at it, the more uneasy I felt. It wasn't just the ethical side. It was the blurring of something I'd always seen as professional. I didn't want to be the girl who dated her dentist. After a full day of internal debate, I finally replied, "Hey, I've been good. Hope everything's going well at the office," he wrote back almost immediately. "It is. Thanks. I meant what I said. By the way, if you ever want to grab dinner or a drink, I'd really like that." I stared at that message for way too long. I even typed, "Sure, that sounds nice," but deleted it. I wanted to say yes, because, let's be honest, how often does an attractive, charming, successful person ask you out? But I also didn't want to be the reason a professional line got crossed. That night, I went down a Reddit rabbit hole, looking for similar stories. Most people said to trust your gut, and if you feel uncomfortable, you're not obligated to entertain it. A few others shared that they dated their dentist or doctor, and it worked out fine. One woman even married hers, but the stories that stuck with me were the ones where things got weird after. Awkward appointments, professional boundaries gone, the dentist acting different when the person said no. That was my biggest fear. What if I rejected him and things got uncomfortable every time I came in? In the end, I didn't reply again. He didn't follow up, at least not right away. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, when I went in for my cleaning. I was nervous, like first date nervous. Even though it wasn't a date, Jessica greeted me like usual, totally normal, and when Dr. Walker came in, he was the picture of professionalism. No awkward comments, no hints, nothing. He asked about work, looked at my x-rays, and that was it. But right as I was getting up to leave, he said quietly, "No hard feelings about before? I just thought you seemed interesting." And then he smiled, genuinely, not that polished "I'm a dentist" smile. I thanked him and left, feeling a weird mix of relief and regret. Since then, I've been replaying it all, wondering if I made a mistake. Maybe it could have been something, Or maybe I dodged a bullet. I guess I'll never know for now. I'm keeping my dentist. He's good at what he does, and I can live with a little awkwardness twice a year. Still, every time I get that appointment reminder, I can't help but think, somewhere in an alternate universe, I said yes, and I'm on a date right now with the guy who's seen me drooling in a bib and cotton in my cheeks. And maybe, just maybe, that version of me is having a great time. It's been about 6 months since that whole awkward dentist situation, and somehow, life decided to throw me right back into it. But with an extra layer of confusion, after that last appointment, things settled down. I didn't hear from Dr. Walker again, and I started feeling like the whole thing was just an odd blip in my otherwise uneventful adult life. But then, around late May, my company changed our dental insurance provider. And guess whose office wasn't in the new network? Yep, his. I took that as the universe giving me an easy out. No confrontation, no weirdness, just a quiet, natural ending to an uncomfortable dynamic. I found a new dentist closer to my apartment, and that was that. Or so I thought. About a month later, I ran into him. Totally random. I was out with a few coworkers at a local wine bar downtown. It was a Friday night. Busy but chill. We were standing near the bar waiting for our drinks when I heard someone say my name in that tone of familiarity that makes you turn before your brain catches up. Hey, Emily? It was him, Dr. Walker, Chris. He wasn't in scrubs. Obviously, just jeans, a gray Henley, and that same easy smile that made my stomach do that annoying little flip again. I hadn't seen him outside the office before, and I realized how much the professional setting had framed the way I saw him. Out here, in dim bar lighting with a drink in his hand. He just looked like a normal guy. A very handsome, confident normal guy. We made small talk. He asked if I was still working at the same marketing firm. I asked if he was still running his practice. He told me he'd opened a second location in the suburbs and had been busier than ever. Then he said, kind of half-jokingly, "So, are we still pretending that offer for dinner never happened?" I froze for a beat but laughed it off. I didn't think it was still on the table. He smiled. It doesn't expire. I could feel my coworkers watching from a few feet away, pretending not to listen, but obviously listening. One of them, Tara, was practically grinning behind her wine glass. Chris didn't press it, though. We talked for a few minutes, and then his friend called him over to their table. Before he left, he said, "Good seeing you, Emily." Seriously, and that should have been it. But as soon as I got home that night, I found myself replaying everything all over again. The smile, the tone, the fact that I didn't feel uncomfortable this time. It felt normal, like two adults bumping into each other. Not like a dentist crossing a line. 2 days later, he texted. I guess he'd still had my number saved from when he reached out before. He said, "I don't usually do second chances, but running into you felt like one. Coffee?" And I stared at that message for a long time. I sent it to Megan, of course. She immediately replied, "It's fate. Go for it." But I wasn't so sure. I didn't want to be the kind of person who blurred professional lines or started something messy. At the same time, it wasn't really the same situation anymore. I wasn't his patient. So I said yes. We met at a little cafe downtown the next weekend. It was easy, surprisingly so. No weird tension, no professional undertones. Just two people talking about movies, travel, and how he once chipped his own tooth snowboarding, which I found darkly funny. One coffee turned into a 3-hour conversation. When we left, he asked if I'd want to do it again sometime. And this time, I didn't hesitate. We started seeing each other more regularly after that. Dinners, hikes, even a concert one weekend. It all felt simple. He was attentive, easy to talk to, and genuinely kind. The weirdness I'd felt before melted away with time. But of course, nothing stays uncomplicated forever. A few weeks into seeing each other, one of my coworkers, Tara, of course, found out who he was. She recognized his name from my insurance forms when I was switching providers, and couldn't resist bringing it up at lunch. "Wait, you're dating your dentist?" she asked, loud enough for half the table to hear. I wanted to disappear into my salad. Word got around the office faster than I could have imagined, suddenly. Everyone had a joke about getting drilled or flossing with benefits. It wasn't malicious, but it was mortifying. I told Chris about it, and he just laughed, saying, "Occupational hazard." I guess he was unfazed. I wish I could say the same. Things between us were still good. But I couldn't shake the worry that it might all blow up somehow. I asked him one night if he ever felt weird about it, about dating a former patient. He shrugged and said, "Not really. I think you're amazing." That's all I know. It should have been comforting, and in some ways it was. but part of me still felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The funny part is, it wasn't anything dramatic that changed things. It was life. He got busier with his new practice. I got promoted and started traveling more for work. We saw each other less and less, until eventually, we both sort of acknowledged it wasn't sustainable. We ended things quietly, on good terms, no drama, no big breakup scene, just two people recognizing that timing wasn't on their side. We still follow each other on Instagram, every once in a while. I'll see him post something from a dental conference or a vacation, and I'll feel that little twinge of nostalgia. It's strange how something that started as such an awkward, uncomfortable experience ended up teaching me a lot about boundaries, timing, and how life doesn't always fit neatly into professional boxes. And yeah, I did find a new dentist again. Older guy, super nice, zero flirty energy, exactly what I need. Still, every time I walk into that sterile room with the faint smell of mint polish and hear the whir of the dental tools, I can't help but think of Chris and wonder if maybe, somewhere down the road, timing will look different. It's been almost a year since everything with Chris ended, and it feels like enough time has passed that I can finally look at it all clearly, without that fog of what if or nostalgia making me rewrite how it really went. We haven't spoken since spring. It wasn't some dramatic falling out. It was more like the slow fade that happens when two people stop orbiting each other. The last message he sent me was a simple, "Hope you're doing okay," after I posted something vague about work stress. I replied with a "you too," and that was it. The digital equivalent of closing a book and putting it back on the shelf, I won't lie. For a few months after, I still thought about him. Not in that heavy, heartbroken way. More like when a song reminds you of a certain drive home or a scent takes you back to a specific summer. He was tied to a weirdly distinct chapter of my life. One that started in a dentist's chair, of all places, when I was just trying to get my teeth cleaned. Looking back, what strikes me most isn't the romance or the awkwardness. It's how much I learned about boundaries, timing, and my own tendency to overthink everything. Before all this, I used to compartmentalize my life in neat categories: work, personal, family, routine. What happened with Chris blurred those lines, and for the first time, I realized how uncomfortable it made me to not have control over which box something fit into. The truth is, I really liked him. He was kind, steady, and funny in a subtle way. He didn't play games or make me guess what he was thinking. He showed up, and even though it didn't last, that bar he set, of how straightforward and respectful someone could be, has stuck with me. Funny enough, I ran into him again last month. Not at a wine bar this time, but at the grocery store of all places. I was in line with a basket full of boring adult stuff: paper towels, almond milk, granola, when I heard that familiar voice behind me asking if I was still loyal to the same toothpaste brand. I turned around, and there he was, still annoyingly good-looking. But with a bit of stubble this time. He looked tired, but in that busy, fulfilled adult kind of way. We caught up briefly. He said his second office was doing great, and he'd started teaching part-time at the dental school. I told him about my promotion, and that I'd been traveling more. It was short, casual, but warm, when I paid and started to leave. He smiled and said, "For what it's worth, you made going to work a lot more interesting for a while." I laughed, said something like, "You made cleanings complicated." And we both just stood there smiling like people who once shared something and didn't regret it. I walked out of that store feeling strangely peaceful, not that bittersweet, aching kind of nostalgia, but a quiet acceptance. Some people pass through your life for a reason you don't see until much later. Chris reminded me what it feels like to be seen, really seen, and also taught me that not every connection is meant to last forever. Sometimes it's just meant to change you a little. I've dated a bit since then, nothing serious yet, but I'm different now. I'm less guarded, less preoccupied with doing the right thing every time, and more focused on whether something feels right. As for my dentist situation, yeah, I still go to the new guy. His name's Dr. Myers, and he's this older gentleman who hums Sinatra while cleaning your teeth and has zero interest in my dating life. It's blissfully uneventful, which I appreciate more than I can say. Sometimes, though, when I'm sitting in that chair with my mouth open and the hygienist chatting about her dog, I think about how wild it is that such a small, random part of my routine once turned into this entire roller coaster of emotions. If you'd told me 2 years ago that a dental appointment would change how I look at relationships and boundaries, I would have laughed. But now I get it. Life sneaks up on you in the most ordinary places. So yeah, my dentist once asked me out. I said no, then yes, then goodbye, and somehow, that little detour taught me more about myself than most relationships ever have. And maybe that's what made it worth it. Stories number 12. My friend did something awful, and now I don't know how to help the person she hurt. I don't even know where to start with this. Everything that's happened over the last few weeks has made me question not just my friendships, but what kind of person I am for even hesitating to report something that I know is wrong. I'm 22, and I've been part of this close-knit friend group since freshman year of college. We met through a campus club, and over the years, we've stayed friends even after graduation. Movie nights, camping trips, birthday parties, all of that. It's always been a pretty tight group, almost like family. The main people in this story are me, my best friend Sierra 23F, our mutual friend Jake 21M, and Jake's girlfriend Maddie 21F. Sierra and I have known each other for about 4 years, and I used to think she was one of the kindest, most loyal people I knew. She's loud, funny, confident, and a little impulsive. The kind of person who lights up every room she walks into. Jake is the opposite. Quiet, thoughtful, the type of guy who listens more than he talks. He's been dating Maddie for almost 2 years, and everyone always said they were one of those solid couples. Maddie's bubbly and sweet, and she and Sierra used to be close too. We all used to hang out together all the time. Everything changed after one night about a month ago. We were having a small get-together at Sierra's apartment. Just our usual group. A few drinks, music, nothing wild. Jake came without Maddie that night because she was visiting family. Everyone was drinking, playing games, just hanging out. I left earlier than usual because I had work the next morning. And at the time, it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. But 2 days later, Sierra called me. She sounded nervous, not her usual confident self. She said, "Something happened with Jake." At first, I thought she meant they kissed or something. I didn't expect what came next. She said, "We hooked up. He was drunk, but he didn't say no. I think he wanted it." My stomach dropped. I asked, "Wait, what do you mean he was drunk? Like drunk?" She hesitated, then said, "Yeah, but he wasn't unconscious, he was just really out of it. He kissed me first." That didn't sit right with me. I asked her what exactly happened, and she got defensive, said I was interrogating her, and that it wasn't a big deal. She told me not to tell anyone, especially Maddie, for a couple of days. I tried to convince myself it was just a messy, drunk mistake between 2 consenting adults. But then I saw Sierra again, and she showed me something that made me sick. A video of her and Jake having sex. I can still remember how it felt when I realized what I was seeing. She showed it like it was gossip, like she wanted to prove something to me. I asked, "Did he know you were recording?" And she said, "I don't think so. He was too out of it to care." Then she laughed. That was the moment I knew what had actually happened. Jake didn't hook up with Sierra, he was assaulted. I couldn't even look at her after that. I told her to delete the video immediately, but she brushed it off. She said, "Relax. I'm not sending it anywhere, it's just between us." I left her apartment shaking. For a few days I didn't know what to do. I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head. The way Sierra had sounded proud of it. The way Jake looked when I saw him at our last hangout, tired, quiet, off. I wanted to tell him, but I was terrified. What if he didn't believe me? What if it made everything worse? Then, last week, Jake texted me asking if I'd heard from Sierra. I asked why, and he said, "She's been weird with me since that party." I can't remember much from that night, but something feels off. My heart just sank. He said he remembered drinking a lot, then feeling dizzy and foggy, even though he didn't think he'd had that much. He said he woke up in Sierra's bed the next morning, naked, with her next to him. He said he felt gross, like something had happened, but she told him they'd both wanted it. He asked me, "Do you think that's true?" And I just froze. I wanted to tell him everything, but I was scared. Scared he'd hate me for not saying something sooner. Scared he'd confront her before I could help him handle it the right way. Scared of what it would do to Maddie when she found out. I told him, "Jake, I think something did happen, but I don't think you gave real consent." He went quiet for a long time and then said, "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to believe it." He asked me if I knew anything more, and I told him I'd talk to him in person. When we met, I told him about the video. I didn't show him, but I said it existed. I said I'd begged Sierra to delete it. He went completely pale. He didn't get angry. He didn't yell. He just looked hollow, like I'd ripped something out of him. He said, "She filmed it?" and then put his head in his hands. That night he called Maddie. She came over, and they both talked to me about what to do. We agreed that Jake needed to go to the police, but he wanted to think first. He said, "If I do this, everyone's going to know. They'll think I'm weak or that I wanted it," and I didn't know what to say, because I could see the shame eating him alive. Even though none of this was his fault, I reached out to Sierra again after that. I told her what I'd told Jake. I said, "You need to delete that video. You need to turn yourself in. What you did was a crime." She flipped out, started crying, screaming that I was betraying her, that Jake was lying, that I was choosing him over her. She said he'd led her on for months, and that she thought it was mutual. I told her no one who's that drunk can consent, and she said, "You don't get it. He kissed me first." I hung up. Since then, Jake's gone to the police. He gave a statement. I don't know how much he told them about me or the video, but he said they're investigating. Sierra's been texting me nonstop, begging me to fix this, to talk to him, to make it go away. I've stopped replying. Maddie has been incredible through all of this. Patient, protective, steady. She told Jake she's not leaving him. She said she just wants him to heal. Watching her handle this with so much grace has made me realize how lucky he is to have her. The rest of our friend group doesn't know yet, at least not the full story. A few people have noticed that things are weird, that Sierra's gone silent online, that Jake's not coming around anymore. I know the gossip's going to spread eventually, and when it does, I know some people won't believe it, because Sierra's always been the fun one, the pretty, popular girl everyone loves. No one ever expects that kind of thing from someone like her. But I saw the video, I know the truth. I just wish I didn't. Every time I close my eyes, I see Jake's face when I told him. That moment of realizing his trust, his body, his safety had all been taken from him by someone he thought was his friend. He's in therapy now, he's trying, I am too, in my own way. And I keep thinking about how easy it would have been for no one to say anything. For Sierra to just keep living like nothing happened. For Jake to keep blaming himself. I don't know if I did everything right, I probably didn't, but I know staying silent would have been worse. I just hope someday he can heal. And that Sierra, the person I thought I knew, realizes the gravity of what she's done. Because this isn't a messy drunk night. It's not a mistake. It's a trauma, and it changed everything. It's been about 2 months since Jake went to the police, and things have shifted in ways I never expected. Not in the dramatic, explosive sense, but in the quiet, heavy way trauma changes the shape of your life. I've spent those weeks trying to figure out how to help him, but I keep realizing that some things I can't fix. All I can do is be there. Jake's been withdrawing a lot. He's always been quiet, but now it's different. It's like the light in him has dimmed, and I catch him staring off into space more than usual. Maddie has been amazing, though. She's patient, not pushy, and she lets him set the pace for how much he wants to talk or do. Honestly, it's been really eye-opening for me, seeing a relationship where someone who's been hurt so badly can still feel supported and loved. I've been spending more time with Jake, too, just trying to help him feel grounded. We go on long walks, grab coffee, or just hang out quietly while he plays video games. I've never been super close with him in a one-on-one sense before this, and I didn't realize how much he's depended on me quietly over the years. He doesn't say much about the assault, unless I bring it up gently, but I can see it in his body language. The flinch, the hesitation, the tension in his shoulders. Sierra, I've barely talked to her. She keeps sending texts that alternate between apologetic, angry, and manipulative. One night she texted me at 2 a.m., asking me to make him forgive her and saying, "I didn't mean to ruin everything." I didn't reply. I know deep down that if I engage with her, it'll only drag me, and possibly Jake, back into the chaos. The police have been moving slowly, and it's frustrating. Jake isn't the type to push aggressively, and part of me thinks he's afraid of the attention, the judgment, and the emotional toll of a legal process. Maddie and I have been encouraging him to go at his own pace, reminding him that he doesn't have to rush. We both know that emotional recovery has to come first. Some of our friends have started to notice the tension. A few of them have reached out to me privately, asking if everything is okay. I've been vague, just saying that Jake needed space and that some things happened that were personal. I don't want gossip to spiral and end up back in Sierra's hands. Honestly, even the thought of her spinning lies makes me sick. Every so often I see Jake check his phone and flinch when he sees a notification from Sierra. It's heartbreaking. Maddie has been the only one who really helps him breathe through that, reminding him that he's not alone, that he's allowed to set boundaries, that he's allowed to be angry, I've realized that being part of the support system doesn't mean solving the problem. It just means holding space while he processes it. A week ago, Jake confided in me something that really shook me. He said, "I feel like I can't trust anyone the same way again." I thought I knew her. I thought I knew my friends. Now I don't know anything. I nodded. Because I felt it too. The betrayal didn't just break Jake. It cracked the foundation of our whole friend group. I told him, "You're allowed to feel that. It's not your fault. And the people who matter, Maddie, me, will stay. You don't have to figure this out alone." He smiled weakly, which was the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in weeks. Small moments like that feel monumental now. Maddie has been quietly reminding me too, that supporting Jake doesn't mean ignoring her own needs or mine. She told me, "Don't let this consume you. You've been his anchor, but don't forget to breathe yourself." It was good advice. I've been seeing a counselor myself now, just to make sure I'm not carrying Jake's trauma as my own. The scary thing, though, is knowing that the video still exists somewhere. Sierra hasn't sent it to anyone, as far as we know. But the knowledge that she recorded it without consent and might try to use it again is terrifying. Jake and I have talked about it, and he knows the only control we have now is to stay vigilant, stay calm, and focus on healing. Despite everything, there have been small victories. Jake laughed genuinely for the first time last week, when Maddie teased him about his terrible singing in the car. He's starting to open up in therapy, and for the first time, I think he's starting to forgive himself. Which, in my mind, is the hardest part of all. I've realized that helping someone in this situation isn't about solving everything, or making the bad things disappear. It's about being steady when their world feels like it's collapsing. It's about being present, honest, and patient, and reminding them that they're not alone, even when betrayal makes them feel completely isolated. I don't know how this will all end legally or socially, but I do know that Jake's not walking this path alone. Maddie, me, and a few others have been quietly holding him up, making sure he can take it one step at a time. And I've realized something important. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to just be there, without judgment, without trying to fix it, and without letting fear of what could happen stop you from acting. I don't feel like this situation will ever be fully over. Trauma like this doesn't just disappear, but I do feel like Jake is starting to find his footing again. And seeing that, even in small glimpses, gives me hope that he'll come out of this stronger. Not because of what happened, but because the people who truly care refuse to let him face it alone. It's been almost 6 months since Jake went to the police, and I finally feel like I can write a proper, final update, even though I know some things will never be truly finished. The legal side of things has been slow, as expected. Jake had to give statements multiple times, and Sierra eventually got arrested for recording him without consent and sharing explicit material. Thankfully, so far she hasn't distributed it beyond her own device. But the authorities are taking it seriously. That was surreal. I never thought I'd see her sitting there, realizing that her impulsive, manipulative actions had real consequences. She still texts me sometimes, apologizing, pleading, and trying to manipulate me emotionally. But I don't respond. I learned quickly that engaging with her only gives her the control she tried to take from Jake. Jake has been healing slowly. He's still quiet, more guarded than before. But there are moments where I see the old spark in him. Therapy has helped. He's learning to process the assault, the betrayal, and the shame he carried, even though none of it was his fault. Maddie has been incredible throughout. She's patient, understanding, and has never once blamed him for what happened. Honestly, watching them navigate this together has been inspiring. Their love isn't flashy, it's steady, careful, and built on trust. Exactly what he needed after something so devastating. I've spent a lot of time with Jake. Too, we hang out, talk about everyday stuff, laugh at stupid memes, and sometimes sit in silence. He's learning to trust me again as a friend, and I've learned how important it is just to be present. There's nothing I can do to erase what happened, but being a steady presence, someone who listens, validates, and supports, has mattered more than I ever imagined. I haven't told the rest of our friends everything. A few of them have noticed the tension, but they only know that Jake is going through a tough time. That's okay. Right now, we're protecting him, not gossiping or stirring drama. It's exhausting to manage sometimes, but necessary. Sierra is in the background, a shadow over everything. I think about the damage she did, not just to Jake, but to our friend group, I think about how people often expect victims to get over it, or forgive and forget. And I see how dangerous that mindset is. We've all had to adjust, and some people drifted away once they realized the extent of what happened. But honestly, the ones who stayed are proving who's truly loyal. One thing I've realized in all this is that helping someone like Jake isn't about fixing the situation or making everything go back to normal. It's about giving him agency, listening without judgment, and letting him feel what he needs to feel. Some days he's angry, some days he's sad, some days he laughs. Every emotion is valid. Every step forward is progress. A few weeks ago, Jake said something that stuck with me. We were walking home from a coffee shop, and he paused, looking at the ground. "I feel like I've lost so much," he said quietly, "but maybe I've also gained something I didn't have before. A sense of who I can rely on. You, Maddie. A few others, people who actually care," I choked up, "because that's exactly it. He hasn't regained everything he lost. He never will. But he's rebuilding a life that is safer, supported, and filled with people who truly love him. That's victory." I also realized something about myself. I've grown through all of this too. I learned that loyalty isn't always easy. It doesn't always look glamorous. It doesn't come with social approval. It comes with patience, courage, and sometimes standing up to someone you once called a friend. I've learned to trust my instincts, to speak up even when it's uncomfortable, and to protect people I care about even when I feel powerless. Maddie and Jake are stronger now. They're laughing more, joking about silly things, and leaning on each other. Jake's started to make plans for the future again. Small things at first, going back to a hobby he loved, applying for a class he'd always wanted to take. These little victories are monumental. I know this isn't a happy, tidy story. There are scars, emotional ones that may never fully heal. But it's a story about survival, about courage, and about the importance of stepping in when someone's boundaries are violated. It's about knowing that the right thing isn't always the easy thing, and that loyalty to your friends sometimes means protecting them from someone who pretends to be a friend. I don't know what the final outcome will be legally for Sierra. That's not my story to tell. What I do know is that Jake is safe, loved, and slowly reclaiming his life. And for me, being part of that, even as a friend, has changed me forever. I just hope that someday he can fully forgive himself, even if he never forgets. And I hope that anyone reading this understands that silence is never neutral when it comes to abuse. Speaking up can save someone from years of trauma. In the end, we can't undo the past, but we can be present for the future. And right now, for Jake, Maddie, and me, that's enough.